Hello and welcome to For Future Generations episode 25. It is the 20th of July. I hope you're having a fantastic summer. And it is the Lord's Day, my dudes, and we are having a great Lord's Day. Hope you are as well. The topic of the day is faithful fathers and WrestleMania. And I am not a wrestling fan. I didn't grow up watching it, but I appreciate it from a distance. But I am joined by my genius co-host, as always, who's bringing a little bit of redneck to us tonight.
Sure.
Sean, how are you, man?
You know, it's funny you say that because I'm actually feeling kind of classy today with a new watch. For those who don't know, I got this in the mail, this nice watch here with the band, of course. My co-host was gracious enough to buy me a watch. He was like, "Oh, just tell me." Like, I was telling him, like, "Oh man, your watch episode really got me wanting to get a nice watch." And he was like, "Just tell me what you want to watch, and I'll pick one out for you or something like that." And then in the mail comes this nice watch. So I've been wearing it anytime I do something other than mowing the lawn or whatever. I've been wearing this. So.
Mowing the lawn, unclogging a toilet, the things that you don't particularly want to wear a watch when you're doing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So we've got three topics we're going to kind of blaze through tonight, but we're going to start off. Sean, you had a book that you've been reading through and had some commentary on.
Yes.
And, did you want to show the book and tell us kind of what it's about?
I do not have a physical copy. Somebody sent me a PDF, or they didn't. But yeah. But I've been reading it.
It's illegal. He didn't do it. Okay.
Yeah.
That's
depends. Yeah. That's the, if illegal, then no. That's the. But anyway, it's called "I'll Take My Stand." There might be a subtitle to it, but the idea is that it is 12 Southern riders in, I believe the year is 1930, and it's definitely in that ballpark. And it is, each has an essay, and it is fascinating stuff. Mutual friends of ours have like a book club type situation, and that's the book that they picked. And at first I was like, man, I wanted to do this other one, but now that I'm reading this, it has been on my list for a long time, and it's been pretty good. I've read the first two of the essays. So the first two are, I'm about to pull it up. The first essay is "Reconstructed but Unregenerate," and that is by John Crow Ransom. The second is "A Mirror for Artists," and that is by Donald Davidson. I'm just going to kind of summarize. I wanted to read an excerpt from the second one, but essentially the whole book is covering the virtues of the agrarian lifestyle.
Mm-hmm. Jeffersonian kind of.
Yeah, it is interesting that there's this out of nowhere. There's kind of this like Hamiltonian, like everyone's Hamilton was the guy, which you don't really hear much up until like 5 minutes ago. Yeah. Out of nowhere, there's this huge contingent of Anon accounts that are like, Hamilton was the guy, and therefore Abraham Lincoln was the guy, and it's like this whole. They've built this thing up, but what's interesting is this collection of essays is making those same distinctions. So apparently, this is a fight that's been going on for a very long time, mm-hmm. and they see it as the same fight. And if they were alive today, for sure, they would say everything that's wrong with this country is a result of the Hamiltonians winning.
Yep.
The North winning against the South, because that was the divide. Even though Hamilton was not a Northerner, he was a foreigner, in the words of our second president and first vice president, John Adams. He said, "I don't like Hamilton. He's a foreigner. He's not an American like we are."
And this is coming from John Adams, who actually agreed with Hamilton more than Jefferson. He wasn't 100% on Hamilton's side of everything. But
Yeah.
when it came to the big issues, Adams was more in that corner than the other.
Yeah, which is why when we were kind of half joking about making our own watch company, I thought it would be cool to just name it Jefferson, and then like the ad could be like, it's like a Hamilton but a little further south. It's like Hamilton but a little more agrarian, something in that ballpark. Like you could,
Yeah,
interesting
and
thing.
have some movements with moon phases on them and things like that. And it's like, these are for farmers.
Oh, dude.
Plant your seeds by them.
Dude, we're over here dropping jokes, but like deep down, people are like, please pull the trigger on that. That would be sweet.
That would be cool. There are lots of things that could be done, but so yeah, I don't have a copy of this book yet. I'm going to get a physical copy and read through it. There's a group that you and I are both in, and we're kind of doing this book reading, and I'm definitely looking forward to it. But somebody dropped the PDF, and I've given a cursory glance. But I'm probably they were recommending a PDF reader, but it's a paid app, and I'm stingy. So,
I've been doing Speechify. I've been doing the free version of Speechify.
Yeah. And does it work pretty good?
Yeah, I mean it's nice to. It's hard for me to just read on my phone. And so for it to be reading it back to me as I'm reading it, I'm able to kind of like, even when I'm like drifting off, I'm like, I'm still kind of in it,
Mm-hmm.
So it's, I like it. It's a good app. If you pay for it, you get better voices. But that first one where he's talking about reconstructed but unregenerate, I mean, the title speaks for itself. You essentially have this situation where, and I'm gonna, what I'm about to say is going to not be 100% from this essay, but it's things that kind of go into it. It weaves into things that I've been seeing on mainly Twitter from guys who are ostensibly our guy, but they just hate the South. They've just got a bone to pick with the Confederacy, but not just the Confederacy, just like Southern people in general. I have a idea of where that comes from, but I can't 100% say this is the guy that started it. Mm-hmm. Anyways, that first essay is essentially saying that the agrarian lifestyle made better people. That's the big thing. So the argument that you'll see online now is, well, the North was more, they were nationalist because they wanted industry. Like that's the big fight. And it's interesting that in these essays from the 1930s, you're talking people that are having the same categories. They're saying that it's either agriculture or industry. Now we know historically the North industrialized at a far greater pace. And in this essay, he's not saying that industry itself is bad. It's the way you industrialize. And so a lot of guys today will argue, well, these guys are more nationalist because they are making their own industry in-house. And that's why the North was able to win the war. Now, I would say it's the way they industrialized that caused them to win the war. And the way they industrialized was they gave part of their humanity away, and they created this concrete jungle, and they imported a large number of foreigners and just put a stamp on them and said, this is an American now. And so you have a situation where by the time you get to 1860 and the first states secede in late 1860, and the war starts in earnest in summer of 1861. You have, I forget the exact stat, but something like 2/3 of the Union Army had at least one foreign-born parent, if not they were foreign-born. Like, as compared to the South, which was is very rare. Of course, you have your you got your Pat Cleburns and guys like that. Like Patrick Cleburne was he was an Irish-born general. But, our guys are going to take note that the Irish, Scottish, or Scotch Irish, and that whole group, like that is the South. Racially, he was a Southern guy. He just hadn't gotten here yet. That admixture is very much defined the early days of the founding stock of the South. That's a whole topic of its own. It's fascinating. Anyways, the North sold its soul as people to become more powerful, and they did, and it worked, and they became a more powerful force, and they were able to, I would say, in embarrassing fashion, because it took them 4 years to fight this agrarian group that didn't even have official uniforms. I mean, the ragtaggedness of the Confederate Army is really the most American thing that any foreigner would ever look at, because that's what defines America. We are ragtag, we are agricultural,
and we love our guns.
We love our guns, and we just bring our own guns, our own horses. We don't get them. You had to bring your own horse, which, if you didn't know that, that's why General Grant did not take the soldiers' horses at Appomattox Courthouse, was because their horses. General Lee was like, dude, these aren't government issue. These are these people's horses. And as soon as you let them go, they're going to take those horses back to their farms and they're going to pull plows. It's their livelihood. They've literally put their own blood, sweat, and treasure into this. Most people had their own guns, like you said. Most people brought their own horses. Most of the cannons were just cannons that the Confederacy took after the Union Army ran. So most of their boats were just boats that they commandeered. Like, it was a ragtag, like, pirate army. And so anyways, the agrarian lifestyle, it connects you. So as a nation, you're not only connected by blood, but you are connected by soil. I might have used this quote before, but I'm going to summarize it because I don't have it in front of me. But Tolkien had said, like, no wonder our ancestors thought there were fairies in the soil, because that same soil that they stood on had fed their ancestors for 5+ generations before. Like, that soil was their livelihood. And that's what an agriculture. So that goes all the way back to the Jefferson-Hamilton debate. And it did divide along the Mason-Dixon line. You have the industrial North and the agricultural South. Now, on a philosophical level, I'm saying that being agricultural in general is going to produce a better stock of people, mentally, spiritually, for sure physically, because you're just doing nothing but physical labor all day.
Even if you're in a factory job where you're doing some physical labor, you're standing in front of a machine. Whereas if you're a farmer, you're picking up and throwing bales of hay. You're out in the sunlight. You're out in the soil. You are one with the land. It's better for your body, but more important than that is it's better for your soul. People refer to factory work as being a cog in a machine. And that's not a glorious life. That is something that self-consciously we see that as a downgrade. What is like the American ideal? It's like, well, I'm going to be a cowboy and I'm going to be out in the West panning for gold, or I'm going to be a farmer on my 160 acres. I'm going to be a cattle rancher, right? These are things that you're in touch with the spirit of the earth, right? The dirt is under your nails and your blood is in the soil, and you feel it. It connects you in a way that turning a wrench just doesn't do. Now, that said, turning a wrench will connect you to things more than typing on a keyboard. For sure. I have I have spilt plenty of blood on lawnmower carburetors and starter engines. Starter motors underneath little Toyota cars that just for some reason seem to die. You bleed on those a little bit, and it connects you in a way that pushing a button doesn't do. But I feel much more connected When I was in high school, I worked at a horse ranch, and I mean, we shoveled manure and fixed horses. Which, by the way, if any of you young guys are looking at getting a job at a horse ranch, I don't want to burst your bubble, but working at a horse ranch actually means shoveling manure and
Yeah,
fixing fences.
that's about it. Yeah.
But you do get to ride the ponies, so it is kind of fun. But I mean, there was like a spiritual connection that you felt with the grassland and the pasture and the horses that I just, I don't get that driving a truck, and I don't get that working on a car. So yeah, the argument was that, yeah, this agrarian lifestyle that we have self-consciously chosen, it's not going to make us rich, and it's not going to make us powerful. We can't build an army, build a navy that's bigger than all the rest of the navies in the world combined, and go be the world's policeman and go drop bombs on little brown people that we don't like, in favor of the brown people we do like. We can't do any of that because we're too busy hoeing our cabbages. But morally, what is better? To bomb brown sand people in the Middle East, or to stay home and hoe your cabbages?
Yeah, and the argument that you hear from people today is they'll say, well, to be a nationalist, you have to have all your industry on your own soil. You can't be doing trade, like everything has to be. That's kind of a, I mean, we've talked about between the two of us that things like tariffs, that's a case by case basis. You can't just say tariffs bad or tariffs good. I mean, it's going to depend what that tariff does, what it's intended to do and what it actually does. I mean, there's a discussion to be had. It's like when, like when I was in my libertarian phase, like 10 years ago, saying, taxation is theft. Well, yeah, some of it, but like taxation itself is not, of itself is not bad. It's how you use it. And same thing with like tariffs and whatnot. But
yeah, my argument about taxation would be that it's a necessary evil. That because people are evil, governments have to be instituted among men.
Yeah.
Because if we were all angels, no man would need to be ruled. But we do need to be ruled.
Yeah.
Because we are not angels, and so government is necessary. And to power a government, you have to have taxes. Yeah. And doesn't make me happy about it.
Right.
But yeah, this whole idea that like, well, we need to manufacture all of our own stuff. Some countries do not have raw materials.
Yeah.
Like Japan. Japan quite famously had one of the largest navies in the world, had an amazing aircraft fleet during World War II. They were importing all of their iron. They didn't have it. And the reason they declared war on the United States and then bombed Pearl Harbor, yes, in that order, Japan declared war on the United States and then bombed Pearl Harbor, is because the United States was embargoing all iron shipments to them. So it's like, we're not at war with you, but we're also going to sink any boats that are bringing iron to you. It's like, yeah, some not at war. But, with friends like these, right? But, some countries can't manufacture things in-house. No. Like it's not practical. Why would you import iron to manufacture your own stuff when you could import the stuff?
Yeah.
Is that really good for your economy? It's like, oh, well, we have to have onshore manufacturing. Why? So that it's, if we're ever at war or under attack, then we don't have to rely on imports. But you're importing all of the raw materials. How is that any different?
Yeah.
So, like you said, it's a case by case basis. Some things,
What's funny about the modern argument that you'll see, that came out of nowhere, that they'll say like, well, that proved that the North was morally right because they did the things they had to do to be powerful. But honestly, literally no other army in the world could have defeated the South. Mm-hmm. The Union Army was the largest army in the world at that time. There was no bigger army. And
an underappreciated element is just how many European observers there were during the Civil War who were documenting the whole thing because, they're just getting off of having huge wars in Europe, and they're about to have some more huge wars in Europe, and they're all curious about, hey, how is this new technology affecting Is the cavalry charge dead? Is it still around? These were all things that people were considering with the advent of, smaller, better, faster cannons and, rifle technology. So
up armored ships. That was brand new, was like during the
crazy.
war.
Yeah. Submarine. First submarine ever. Technically there was a barrel during the Revolutionary War, but I'm not.
Where you go with it, you go with a corkscrew and like try to make a hole in the ship. That's so like barbaric now that we look back at it. Like what? That's like some.
It's Mad Lab activity, man.
Yeah, it's like some Wile E. Coyote warfare. I'm gonna go in a barrel and do my little corkscrew thing.
Right.
So what ends up happening in the war is that the North makes a deal with the devil, and they sell
kept his word.
Yeah, and they sold their soul so that they could be a little more powerful, so that they could overtake the agrarian South. And now it's everyone's problem. Now everyone has to deal with the fallout. And so you have, this in this essay, he's talking about how, we weren't as powerful as, just doing the communist Russia. I just use that as a comparison. Obviously, they're not connected, but like the communist Russia thing where it's like, I served the Soviet Union. What was, you ever watch that Chernobyl mini series? Oh, dude, just that first episode alone is some of the most compelling television I've ever seen. It's really incredible. That first episode is where they just show like it exploding, people dying. I mean, it's wild. But there's a scene where they go on top of Chernobyl and they go for the they're given like 30 seconds each or something like that. Like go,
and they're just shoveling stuff off.
Yeah, they're like, for 30 seconds do your thing and then come back, because any longer than they probably still got crazy radiation from that.
Yeah, they did. And all those men are dead.
Yeah. But they at the end, they're all like in a line in like a formation, and he says, basically thank you for your service, and to a man they're all like, I served the Soviet Union. And that's how they think about it. They're a cog in the machine. They're this is Quartz movement, but they're the, like I am a piece of something greater than myself. I am.
Yeah.
Like
there are gears in that watch. They're just smaller and fewer of them.
Right. I guess I'm just saying, like there's also a battery, so it's kind of cheating. So they say. Anyways, so it dehumanizes you. It takes away your humanity. And like I know, we have friends that'll say like, oh, that's Jeffersonian libertarianism or something. Like, well, you are an individual. You do have a humanity as yourself. When we talk about this is getting into like Lutheran understanding of the sacraments, but when we talk about, Christ died for the world, or when Christ says this is my blood of the new covenant given for you, we like to emphasize, Christ died for individuals. He didn't just die for this kind of nebulous
everybody.
Like not like a theoretical humanity, but like actual individuals. The individual sins of individual people. And anyways, so it's a humanity thing. You're more human in an agricultural society. So you're not going to be as well oiled of a machine as far as like a war fighting effort. But them's the breaks. That's the trade-off, right? So anyways, the second of the essays is about art. Interestingly enough, a lot of weird things in there. I say weird. There's going to be a lot of things. If you're a midwit like myself, there's going to be a lot of things that go over your head. So you're going to get some concepts, but you're not going to get maybe the more nuance in the essay itself. It's some very deep thinking. And each of these guys, it's a different writer each time. So it's like you're in somebody's mind. It's a different person, but they're all kind of playing off each other. I don't know how to also explain it, but people who've read the book will know what I'm talking about. So I'm going to read this. And this is going to be like in the middle of things, so you'll catch it as I go. It offers the possibility of an integrated life, American in the older rather than the newer sense. Its population is homogenous. Its people share a common past, which they are not likely to forget. For aside from having Civil War battlefields at their doorsteps, the Southern people have long cultivated a historical consciousness that permeates manners, localities, institutions, the very words and cadence of social intercourse. This consciousness, too, often misdescribed as merely romantic and gallant, really signifies a close connection with the 18th century European America that is elsewhere forgotten. In the South, the 18th century social inheritance flowered into a gracious civilization that, despite its defects, was actually a civilization true and indigenous, well diffused, well established. Its culture was sound and realistic in that it was not at war with its own economic foundations. It did not need to be paraded loudly. It was not thought about particularly. The manners of planters and countrymen did not require them to change their beliefs and temper in going from cornfield to drawing room, from cotton rows to church or frolic. They were the same persons everywhere. There was also a fair balance of aristocratic and democratic elements. Plantation affected frontier. Frontier affected plantation. The balance might be illustrated by pairings. It was no purely aristocratic or purely democratic South that produced Thomas Jefferson and Andrew Jackson, Robert E. Lee and Stonewall Jackson, John C. Calhoun and Andrew Johnson, Poe and Sims. There was diversity within unity. That's a crazy thing to hear, by the way. Like, to hear people talk about diversity within unity, but not like skin tone difference.
Mm-hmm.
Like
diversity of thought.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like there was something. So what he's saying is like there's a connectedness with the art that the South produced. Earlier in the essay, he talks about how you end up in the North with these people who just do art. That's all they do. And so they're disconnected from the common struggle that makes great art. There's a concept in art that he doesn't get too deep into, but where the difficulty of making something makes something better. I don't know how, if you know what I'm talking about, but for instance, back in before like third generation Pixar movies, it was very difficult to make a animated movie. Mm-hmm. When you look at Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, that was the first animated feature length film, I think is how they define
it. Every single frame hand drawn.
Yeah. So if you're going to do that, you're going to assure beforehand that you have a good story, right? Like you're not just
going to putting a lot of work into this.
A lot of work. A lot of men are having to draw a lot of panels. It's not just one guy drawing out the whole thing. So you have to have an interconnectedness. Everyone's on the same page. There's a lot of effort put into it. Same thing with like paintings. I know now you can just, you could use AI and you can make something pretty good, but it's never going to be as good as the guy's like painstakingly having to make the details himself and source his own.
I have a cousin who is a professional artist. Literally, she does it for a living. Went to school for it, and came over to her place one time, and I was watching her paint. And what she had was she had a projector shoot a picture onto her canvas, and then she went behind it with a paintbrush and traced it. And then she turned it off and she put the finishing touches and more details into it. But I was like, part of me, I mean, I'm not an artist. I'm a drawer. Okay. I draw some things, but I've never been able to draw hands. I've always been a bird drawer. I love drawing birds and trees. But, when I saw that, there was just a part of me inside that revolted against it. It's like, you're making this too easy. Part of this is the struggle. Getting the aspect ratio is the struggle. And when you have a projector, just throw it all on there and you're like, trace some lines and boom, I've got my depth of field. I've got my aspect ratio all figured out. It's like, it felt cheap.
And you're not making anything new. You're just copying the thing that already exists.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So it
can never be revolutionary, can never be unique and new. Yeah.
But you have these guys like, I love Faulkner because he would have to go work in his field in between writing. It wasn't like, he had to walk downtown. He had to know the people of his town because that's how you got by back then. Like you couldn't grow literally everything you needed on your farm. You had to do some amount of trade and something. So he integrated with the people, and that's where he would get the inspiration for his stories. So there's a humanity in him. But if you live in a penthouse apartment in New York City and you're just, taking 3 paint cans and you spin them on a rope and then it goes up and down. Okay, well, that might look cool. But also,
but by the time I've seen the third one, I've seen all of them.
Yeah, but
and, you could take an artist and put him in 3 different seats, 10 feet apart, painting the same castle, and each one of those is going to be unique.
Right.
Catching different angles and shadows and light and sunsets and sunrises.
Well, it's like the what is it called, spirograph or whatever, where it's like the little the cogs, and you're like doing the thing, and then it goes up here. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's art, but you know what? Like, it's just a design. Like, it's not. You're not actually. It's the elements of art. It was like I want to say Nancy Pearcey is the art. Is the author I'm thinking of. She wrote a book called Saving Leonardo. Great book, by the way. No, not Nancy Pearcey. Is that right? Saving Leonardo. Look that up.
Nancy Pearcey is an author. Total Truth, Love Thy Body. That's what I know her from. Because when we got married, we had that book. And, I recommend it.
I want to see this because this. Yep,
Leonardo.
I was right.
Pearcey. Yeah, that's correct.
Nancy Pearcey. Okay, I'm second guessing myself. That's a great book.
Odd Connection. Odd Connection.
Well,
her books, her writing covers various things.
Yeah. I won't speak for all, everything she believes or says, but that book in particular is very good, and it talks about art and the specific thing I was trying to think of, which I just lost. What were we talking about right before that? Before I was like, what is the name of? Oh, dude.
The fact that the struggle makes the art, and not losing it.
There was something after that. I totally blanked.
That's okay.
But anyways, she talks about how, people will make art where it's like, it's just like 3 stripes. It's basically like a flag, but it's just, it's colors that they say, oh, these are complementary colors. And so it'll be like stripe, stripe, stripe. And then they'll sell that. And, someone will say like, well, look at the way the colors play and the composition of this. But what she says is like, that's the elements of art, but it's not art itself.
But you haven't got there yet. Yeah.
You haven't made art yet.
Yeah, people like to talk about abstract art, like Monet and people like this who do impressionist art. And when you look at a Monet, it is impressionist. But the thing is, you back up and it all comes together. Like, it's just dots and, splats and this, that, and the other. But then you back up and you look at it and you're like, oh, that's a boy riding a horse.
Right.
That's a man pulling a plow or whatever it is, right? But, then you zoom in and you can see all the dots and how they're not. But the thing is, when you do impressionism for its own sake, all you're doing is flicking your brush at a canvas. It's like, that's not art. You're getting the elements. Like you've got the ideas, you understand the principles, but you're not actually creating a thing, right? It's just a mess. It's kind of like if I have all of the parts to a motorcycle in a box in my garage. It's like, do I own a motorcycle? Yeah, I own a motorcycle. Can you ride it? Well, no, it's in a box, right? It's all pulled apart and not put back together. It's like, well, do you actually own a motorcycle then, or do you just own a bunch of motorcycle parts? Like, this is not a piece of art. This is, you've got all of the pieces, but you haven't actually built anything. You haven't actually created something.
But it's the exact amount of motorcycle parts that I would need to have a full bike. So the concept is there. Yeah.
I mean, these artists have the skill, right? They have the talent. They know how to do it. They're just not doing it.
Well, that was like, I'll never forget. This is kind of getting off track, but I went to the Louvre back in, I don't know, 2000. Well, it would have been like Christmas 2010-ish, the day after Christmas, I think. And went to the Louvre, and it's amazing, first of all. But we're going through, and I'm like, whoa, this is so crazy. Like, look at this cool picture of like Jesus and John the Baptist as kids, and they're like on someone's lap, or you know what I mean? Like, it like you can tell like there was a Christian ethic in the painting itself. Like, somebody cared about the people
who
they're
Jesus
painting.
was, who John the Baptist was, why they're important.
Yeah, there was a cool like David and Goliath painting and it was in the middle of the room, so it's, you know, painting is flat, and it's in a frame, but it's to where on one side, you know, it's like David cutting Goliath's head off, and then on the back side is the same thing but from the opposite angle.
Wow,
it's really cool, dude.
That's
I'll
impressive.
If someone in the audience wants to look that up, it's at the Louvre. I doubt they've moved it. It's just really incredible. They have a whole wing of just Christian art. It's really, really amazing. But then I get to this one part, and it's literally a picture of a dude, a butt naked dude. And it's a photograph. It's not even a painting. And it's just him smoking a cig in like a hallway. And he's not even impressive looking, if you know, like he's not like muscular or nothing. And he's not like
the statue of David. Looking defiantly toward the other cities.
If anything, he looked emaciated, but like an average liberal, emaciated, not like African emaciated. But that was it. That was the photograph. And I'm looking at my butt, and it's like blown up big. I'm like, dude, this guy's bits are just out here in the Louvre. Yeah. And I'm like, what is this? And so it just like, it shocked me. And I guess it's good that it's there so that you see the alternative to talent and giftedness. Like, so you just like run into this
contrast.
Like, oh, that's that. Yeah, I could do that. I can't do.
Ever since World War II, art's been really bad. Here's an example.
Yeah, I can't do, you know, Venus de Milo around the corner, but I could do this. I could stand in a hallway naked while my wife pulls her phone out and takes a picture. Like, so that was kind of fun. Anyways, the Louvre is just amazing, dude. I can't even. I thought it would be overrated, but I went there and I was like, finally a museum that I wasn't disappointed by.
Yeah, and the palace itself is a work of art as well.
Yeah, it was also cool because like people at the time didn't have the Facebook app on their phone, and so or at least it wasn't popular, but Apple had like a thing going on with their laptops, and so I was able to post on Facebook from the Louvre, and it said it before like people could really do that, and so that was really cool.
The Louvre.
Yeah, you couldn't have that before, so that was that account doesn't exist anymore for various reasons. But anyways, let me continue with this. I could ramble on about the Louvre forever. There were also leisureliness, devotion to family and neighborhood, local self-sufficiency and self-government, and a capacity up through the 60s for developing leaders. By the way, I think he's talking about the 1860s, not because 1960s hadn't happened yet. Above all, the South was agrarian, and agrarian it still remains very largely. Whether it still retains its native inborn ways is a question open to argument in the minds of those who know the South mainly from hearsay. In the South itself, especially in its scattering and diluted industrial centers, there is much lip service to progress. The more because industrialism makes a very loud noise with all its extravagant proclamations of better times, and the South has known hard times only too well. Yet probably the secret ambition of most southern city dwellers, especially those in apartment houses, is to retire to the farm and live like gentlemen. There are still plenty of people who find the brassy methods of tradesmen a little uncouth. The southern tradition is probably more vital than its recent epitaphs have announced. If it were not alive, even in the younger generations, this book would never be written. But these are considerations which are touched upon elsewhere. My business is to consider to what extent it offers the kind of society we are looking for. So that, I mean, that says like there's these people in the cities talk about how great industry is, but what do they want to work hard for? To go back to and get a farm. Mm-hmm. They want to be able to buy a farm and then ostensibly, I guess, pass it on to their kids. You know, it's funny that today we talk about settling down. You know, what is settling down? What does that mean? Well, it means I'm no longer career oriented. I'm getting married. I'm having kids. Like that's the ultimate goal of, you know, supposedly of like, you know, you go to college and you get this amazing job in this high rise and you know, you've got yourself set so that you can have kids, so you can have a family, you know, ideally with a wife included, not just baby mamas stacked up. But you know, that's had a guy on Twitter. I was talking about how basically how men should have families. Crazy, right? Crazy thing for a conservative to say, that men should have families. And he was like, well, why? Or that men should be married. Well, why? I mean, women are bad. I'm, you know, whatever. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, you want to have kids. You want to have someone to pass on what you've built. He's like, well, I don't need a wife for that. Well, if you're Christian, you do. You know, that's where I'm. Yeah, exactly. Plus, why would you want that? Like all these guys like Andrew Tate, that's like, well, I've got a bunch of kids. Okay, like, and who's raising them? You don't even know what they do on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
It's, you know, I mean, some
you don't know their names.
Yeah. So anyways, I'll continue with this. One must allow that the South of the past, for all its ways of life, did not produce much great art. An obvious retort to such a criticism would be neither did the rest of America. Also, I might say, as it is frequently said, that the long quarrel between Southern agrarianism and Northern industrialism drove the genius of the South largely into the political rather than the artistic field. A good case might be made out, indeed, for political writing itself as a kind of art in which the South excelled, as in forensic art. That's a great point. That is a great point, because art isn't just painting. Mm-hmm. You know, some of it's writing. Some of the best
speaking, public
literature,
speaking,
just Or, you know, when you talk about political writing, that's where Dabney really excels. I know everyone loves Dabney these days. Theologically, he does have some great things to say. I'm not going to try to like undermine him on that, but his political things that he has to say,
way superior.
When he talks about his experience in the war, like this is where, you know, you get that, man, how do you even say it? Like there's that je ne sais quoi, you know, how do you even tangibly say what it is? Even reading this, as I'm reading it, I find myself stumbling because it's written the way that people talk.
Yeah.
And I've always said that is what sets guys like William Faulkner apart. Like when I write, I'm not actually writing the way that I talk. There's like this idealized version of speech that you put into the mouths of your characters. But William Faulkner will go on these like long, he's not having characters say this, it's just him rambling, but he writes the way that people talk. Well, the way that like Southern old men tell stories, where it's like, you know, you're telling the story. Oh, let me grab this rabbit real quick. Okay, I'm telling the story. Oh, let me, you know, shoot this deer. Okay, telling the story. You know what I mean? Like you kind of branch off into things, kind of like I'm doing right now.
What do you know?
All right, this is the last bit of it. Let me make sure.
Yeah, there was I have a Facebook friend, and I'm really bad with names, so I apologize, buddy. I think his name is Travis, but he was writing about his war experience in Afghanistan, and he did like 4 or 5 posts, just a paragraph 2 or 3 long, and the prose in this, it was amazing and beautiful in the way that it captured the mind immediately. Like you were there, you could smell the smells, you could feel the gravel under your feet, and yet it wasn't pretentious, right? It was all coming out of him, just the way he talked. You could tell it's like this is the way he talks in real life, and it was an amazing thing to behold. And I wish I had pulled this up in preparation, but it hadn't occurred to me till just now. But just some people have that gift, and it's absolutely every bit as good and important as a painting in the Louvre.
Yeah. I'm gonna finish this last page here. Yet this is not the whole story. So far as the arts have flourished in the South, they have been, up to a very recent period, in excellent harmony with their milieu. The South has always had a native architecture, adapted from classic models into something distinctly Southern, and nothing more clearly and satisfactorily belongs where it is, or better expresses the beauty and stability of an ordered life, than its old country homes with their pillared porches, their simplicity of design, their sheltering groves, their walks bordered with boxwood shrubs. The South has been rich in the folk arts, and is still rich in them. In ballads, country songs, and dances, in hymns and spirituals, in folk tales, in the folk crafts of weaving, quilting, furniture making, though these are best preserved in mountain fastnesses and remote rural localities, they were not originally so limited. They were widespread, and though now they merely survive, they are certainly indicative of a society that could not be termed inartistic. I mean, that's
for sure.
I mean, everyone knows that there is a such thing as a Southern way, right? Like we get Southern cookbooks, right? Because in my little free library, every once in a while, we'll get like a cookbook or something. So there's like Southern cookbooks, and it's just nothing but Southern food. There's a restaurant down the way we just went to the other day because my mother-in-law's in town, and when my mother-in-law's in town, we eat good. Like right now, I'm eating some steak and potatoes in between my talks, but where was I going with this? Oh, architecture. There was I remember seeing a post one time that someone was saying like, oh, these different kinds of architectures. It was like a big page. It wasn't like a friend. And he said like, this is Greek revivalist architecture. I said, excuse you, it's Southern Greek revivalist architecture. That's what it's called. Yeah. It's not just Greek revivalist. It's an antebellum way that we incorporated Greek architecture into our houses.
Yeah.
In wild ways. I mean, it's people call it a plantation home. It's what it looks like.
Yeah. There was a house that for a family reunion, we went down to New Orleans, and we stayed in this house that was built in the 1880s, and it was amazing. And the interesting thing about this house is it was, just the doors inside the house were like 12 feet tall. There was a stairway going up to the top floor, and the rooms in the top were small, right? These are the bedrooms that the rich people probably who built and lived in this house would have lived in. And these rooms were, 10 feet by 8 feet, small little bedrooms. But then the library was massive. The dining room was massive. The living room was large enough that you could have a dance in it, and it probably did. And the kitchen was added on to the back, modern, and it was small, but it was just like there were things about this house that were just so distantly foreign to the modern architect. The stairway going up, just the pillars and the tall doors, the tall, heavy doors that you could shut, huge rooms that you could just completely isolate from each other with big, heavy pocket doors. It felt like you were living in a castle.
Yeah.
And to this day, in my mind, when I think of an ideal house, I think of this one house that I spent a weekend in one time. And things like that don't impress you without being impressive and being art per se.
Yeah, there's a I mean, I talked about food, architecture. I personally argue that depending on which Southern novelist you're reading, Southern literature is its own special thing. In this, he does talk in this essay about these guys that will try to prop themselves up as like this Southern literary guy. And he's like, you write like a Yankee, dude. Like you don't write like us. Like I don't know why. I mean, you're from here, but you're completely reconstructed, dude. Like in so many words, probably not saying dude, but he's just there's a particularity to some of the things. Like whenever I see suspenders, I think of like the South. I don't, for whatever reason. I mean, I'm sure everyone used to wear suspenders at some point, but there's something about when you have the suspenders and then like the jacket over it, like you're actually dressed up, not just like a Steve Urkel with a, Are you wearing suspenders right now? Nice. Yeah, very good. Yeah, there's just something. There's all these distinct things, and it's not just like painting, right? Like there's all this art, music.
There's an entire culture holding up, underpinning this entire movement that. Art affects the culture, but also the culture defines the art. Where you come from determines where you go, and the journey where you are going determines how you get there. So, these things are all intertwined, and it's in a large part completely lost. I mean, Reconstruction was ultimately successful. The South was predominantly, when I was a child, predominantly manufacturing. Now it's predominantly, there was a map that I saw. Let me see if I can pull it in while I'm talking about it. But there was a map that showed kind of what the United States was like before, the 1990s. And, well, it looks like I don't have it saved, so I can't pull it up. But, the states were all predominantly manufacturing. This was like from the 50s to the 90s. That was their main income. That was their main industry. And then, modern, it's like you've got three, and that's manufacturing. You've got one or two states in the Midwest and the Rust Belt where that's still the main thing. And in the original map, like the only state that was primarily hospitality was Nevada. And, it's like, we know what's making that happen. It's the casinos and the hotels in Las Vegas, right? And then everything else was manufacturing, with a few exceptions here and there, which were healthcare. Now the map reads everything's healthcare. Every single state is healthcare except for Nevada, which is still hospitality, and a few holdouts, which oddly, one of them I think was Massachusetts, which was, they're primarily manufacturing, but everybody else was healthcare. Even, Texas, California, their primary business, their largest corporations were all healthcare. And it just followed, you could see that it followed the boomer generation. The boomers had this manufacturing job. They got old, and all of the jobs went from manufacturing to healthcare to care for the aging boomers. And it didn't have to be this way.
Yeah.
It didn't have to be this way. You could have had an agrarian South where the primary export, the primary employment, your largest, goods were food. And I think it was like there was one state in the Midwest, like Kansas or Nebraska, that it was like still their primary export was corn or something like that. But it's construction succeeded.
There's a great line in the first Henry Cavill Superman movie. Was that Man of Steel? Mm-hmm. That was the first one that he did? Okay. Where he's talking with his dad, and he's like, well, I want to do something important. And his dad says, growing food's not important?
Yeah.
And you can see on his face, he's like, I didn't mean that. Like, but I
Mm-hmm.
mean, obviously, Superman needs to do more than just
Be a
pull
farmer.
a farm. Yeah. Um, but it was just one of those things where it's like, what, growing food ain't important? Like, it's the most
Mm-hmm.
important thing. It's the
Yeah.
first industry that has to exist.
Mm-hmm.
Like, everything else is built around that.
Yeah, everything else is secondary and tertiary to getting food.
I did want to say one last thing about Southern art. I can't believe I forgot music. If anything, that's the one thing that has kind of stayed in. And there's a great interview I saw one time. It was part of some bigger documentary. It was one of the Allman brothers. I think it was Greg Allman. And he was saying, people describe our music as Southern rock, which I always found funny because all rock is Southern. So really they're just saying it's rock.
Yeah,
he's like, he said we created that. That's our thing. Other people did great things with it. Don't get me wrong. Other people outside of America did great things. Led Zeppelin is one of my favorite bands, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pink Floyd, I love. I mean, there's the Beatles, obviously. Many outside, English. I was going to say outside of America, but really we're just talking about the English. Yeah. Thin Lizzy out in Ireland with their African lead singer. I mean, you know what I mean? Like there's some outside of America goodies, but I thought that was just such a great quote that it just stuck with me, that he's like, when they say Southern rock, that just means rock.
Yeah. I mean, in the United States, where does the music come from?
Yeah.
Nashville, Tennessee.
Yeah.
Nashville has been taken over, and the music coming out of Nashville is no longer Southern. But there didn't used to be a distinction between gospel music and country music. It was like country music was gospel music, and gospel music was country music, and it was an intentional bifurcation done by the people in Tennessee to separate gospel music from country music, in order to get to. And this was their long goal, to get to the rampant degeneracy in country music today, the rap and nonsense that they pass off for country music. That was intentionally reconstructed. And it took a long time. It was the holdout. Like you say, the South was reconstructed. Their culture, their art was destroyed. But it took a while. And, some of it is still around.
Yeah.
Not being pushed by the big labels in Nashville, for sure.
Yeah, we're talking about like the influence of Southern music. We could go all the way back. Their folk music is going to go further back than the founding of America, but when it became very distinctly American is when you get into the blues. And for those who don't know the technical definition of the blues, you're using the minor pentatonic scale with a flat fifth. That's the blues note. That's the devil's note, if you ever heard that in church history, that the Catholic Church banned the flat fifth because it's the devil's note, which is where the idea of devil's music comes from. It's not a racial thing or anything like that. It's literally historically the Catholic Church said the flat fifth is the devil's music.
Yeah.
Or it's the devil's
Catholics who just didn't have good taste in music.
Yeah. So there is a way to so for instance, the opening song that we use for this podcast is the minor pentatonic scale. It doesn't sound like the blues. It sounds like rock, right? That's how we associate it with it. But that's what rock is. It's mainly the minor pentatonic. Now, I mentioned the Allman Brothers. They do great things with the major pentatonic laid over the minor, and then the minor laid over the major, and that gets into some things. But it's the same thing with country music. You're largely just using the minor pentatonic, and so you have the blues, which we can argue about where that started. You essentially have the white man refining something that he got from the black man. That's essentially what the blues is.
It was slave songs mostly had kind of this very sad, lilting kind of theme to it, and musicians picked up on that and honed it and sharpened it, and that's where the blues came from. And the country music self-consciously came out of the blues.
Yeah.
And rock and roll self-consciously was a blending back of country back into blues.
I would say it
a little bit. Yeah.
I would say it's two branches. That's how I would describe it. You have the blues and country comes out of that and rock comes out of that, which is why Elvis Presley in the later stages of his career just did country music, because it was easy to just go from rock to country. And that's why a lot of guys even today will go from, sounding country to like, well, I'm just going to, I'll give an example. We went to some radio station had a concert, and it was like multiple country music, like modern country music guys. And I was loving it. I was just sitting there with my wife. I'm like, oh man, like that's a Stratocaster that he's using now, because he wanted to have this kind of sound with this. But there's rock doesn't exist like that, like it did back in like the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Like there was a guitar boom. You'll hear like guitar companies talk about this, like Fender, Gibson, all the guys. That's when they were like in the 80s. Everyone wanted to be Eddie Van Halen playing, the Frankenstein Stratocaster, or whoever you wanted to be. If it's most of them are Stratocaster guys, like Jimi Hendrix, Eric Clapton. All the guys I like are Stratocaster guys.
All the best.
All the best, in my opinion. Yes, all the best guys. But you, anyways, there was a boom, and now it's kind of busted. But you can still see in modern country music guys doing great guitar work that is essentially classic rock sounding. I mean, I hate to say it, but a lot of the modern country guys. Now, I'm not talking about the goofy trap beat country guys, or like who's the guy with all the face tattoos that they call country now? What's his name? It's not that he's bad. It's just that's not Malone. Country. No, not Post Malone.
I don't really know.
Jelly Roll. Jelly Roll, is that what his name is? Yeah, big fat guy with face tattoos.
Is he country now?
He's considered country. And now, like I said, he's not like untalented or anything. He's got a great voice and all that, but it's not country. But anyways, all that to say, the South has a great art history, and it comes from that agrarian lifestyle. Like you were saying, like the blues comes from, essentially like slave songs. I mean, what's more in tune with the earth than the songs that come from your heart as you're picking cotton? I mean, I hate to, I know that's kind of morbid for some people, but but
it's true. I mean, you are a product of your environment.
Yeah.
And so it bleeds into your art. It bleeds into every facet of everything that you create.
Yeah. And I know some people will say I'm not racist enough if I say things like this, but it was a beautiful connection that the Southern white man made with the Southern black man, and this musical kind of cross-pollination that happened, and it made something great and distinctly Southern, and for better or for worse, that's our history, and it's our contribution to the world. And that's why you have Robert Plant, the lead singer of Led Zeppelin, talking about growing up listening to American blues on the Armed Forces Network in England, because the soldiers had their radio station there, and that's how he listened to it, and that's why he grew up wanting to play. I mean, you listen to Led Zeppelin 1, their first album, very, very bluesy. I mean, some of that is just not rock at all. It's just straight, like 12-bar blues. Anyways, I can go on and on about that, but let's go on to your topic, unless you had something else to say.
Sounds good. All right. So talking, about fathers, we've been talking about heritage and where do we come from, and touched on some of the disconnect, some of how our heritage has been lost, and in some ways how our heritage has been preserved and changes over time. And that's natural. It's natural that things will evolve with time, but there are some things, some principles that we want to maintain. And, this is a thought that I've been talking to a friend of mine about, what is a faithful father? What makes a faithful father? But more specifically, a faithful and biblical father. So I was kind of mulling over some of these ideas and considering, what are the aspects that make a faithful father, and what are the things that I want to emulate from my fathers. What are the things that I want to do in my life to sustain my children? So I think the thing I wanted to open with was, just the broad question: what is a faithful father? Everybody this week has seen, we've been talking about music, Coldplay, and the CEO of Coldplay caught in an adulterous affair with his
No,
head
not the CEO of Coldplay.
no, the CEO of what was it called, Astronomer,
Yeah,
which
something like that.
at a Coldplay concert, caught in an adulterous affair with his head of HR, and caught on the big camera screen. They were doing something like they typically do at baseball games, where they have the kiss cam and couples, and they're just kind of, cameraman picking out people like, oh, look at the cute little couples, we're playing a love song, and people are, dancing and they're hugging, and they catch this one couple, put their faces on the big screen, and then they see themselves in front of the entire world. And it's like that moment in Genesis when Adam and Eve are confronted by God in the garden, and they hide themselves. He dies for the floor, and she turns around and hides her face, and hides up against the wall. Don't look at me! Don't look at me! And this embarrassing moment. But that's an example of a not faithful father. And I don't know if he has kids with either his wife or...
Yeah, he's got multiple kids. I've seen a picture of the wife, and
yeah.
there was a picture somebody shared of the wife and the kids with him right before the concert. Like,
oh my word,
Dad's going to the concert with the HR lady, so you know it's safe because it's the HR lady. Like, oh wow,
yeah.
And you know what? I want to say real quick, the craziest part of that to me is that there's a third woman that you see on, or there's another woman that you see on camera, and she's just like she knows.
Oh my word!
Yeah, like she knows what just happened. Like all those people were in on it, and they didn't say anything. Like, it's just... Actually, I take it back. It was the picture I saw was the HR woman with her family and her kids. So,
man,
awful.
That's awful.
Awful.
Yep. Just women in the workplace has been really good for society.
Yeah, it's been a disaster to the human race.
Yeah. Anyway, not to Fed post, but so our society right now is rife with examples of faithless fathers. That's been the subject of past shows. We talked about young men who don't have a good example of a father. We've talked about, pastors berating young men for being fatherless incels, but not really, not encouraging them to take examples of good fathers. What are you supposed to do if you find yourself being one of these, supposedly fatherless incels? What is the solution? Where is your example? If your dad, went off to go buy some milk and didn't come back, or went to go get a pack of cigarettes and that was the last you heard of him. And we have examples of faithful fathers in Scripture, and it's a poor substitute for a proper father in your life, but it's something that you can turn to as an example. And as a father, as a man who had a good father, my relationship with my dad is still quite excellent, and I love him very much. He was not an absentee father. He was, when he was home, when he was not deployed, because he was a soldier in the U.S. Army. When he was not deployed, he was very involved in my upbringing, and I believe that my principles are derived from his. He taught me the things that sustain me to this day. And but who are the good examples of fathers that we have in Scripture? And I'm going to postulate that one of the best fathers that we have in Scripture is somebody that you almost never hear about. He gets sort of glossed over because his father is very important, mentioned all over Scripture, and his son is very important and kind of sets the stage for the coming of the Messiah.
Can I take a guess?
Take a stab.
That sounds like you're describing Isaac.
That's precisely who I'm describing.
Right.
When you read through Genesis, you read a lot about Abraham, you read a lot about Jacob, and Joseph has his own storyline, but Isaac kind of gets glossed over. And I've postulated in the past that it's like that old saying, right, that feminists love to say. It's like good girls don't make history books, or they're not written down in the history. Only the bad girls are recorded. And they say this like it's some kind of a win, when in fact it's anything but. Maybe a lot of people writing about you is a sign that you weren't particularly a good person. Maybe the fact that you genocided 1/10 of the world's entire population, and almost everybody in Asia can trace their lineage back to you. Maybe that's because you were in fact a very bad person. But so what are those examples of good fatherhood? And I want to start off by reading Genesis 17, starting in verse 1. And when Abraham was 90 years old and 9, the Lord appeared to Abram and said unto him, I am the mighty God, walk before me and be thou perfect. And I will make my covenant between me and thee, and will multiply thee exceedingly. And Abram fell on his face, and God talked with him, saying, As for me, behold, my covenant is with thee, and thou shalt be a father of many nations. Neither shall thy name any more be called Abram, but thy name shall be Abraham. For a father of many nations have I made thee, and I will make thee exceeding fruitful, and I will make nations of thee, and kings shall come out of thee. And I will establish my covenant between me and thee, and thy seed after thee, in their generations, for an everlasting covenant, to be a God to thee, and to thy seed after thee. And I will give unto thee, and to thy seed after thee, the land wherein thou art a stranger, all the land of Canaan, for an everlasting possession, and I will be their God. And God said unto Abraham, Thou shalt keep my covenant, therefore thou and thy seed after thee in their generations. This is my covenant which ye shall keep between me and you and thy seed after thee. Every man child among you shall be circumcised, and ye shall circumcise the flesh of your foreskins, and it shall be a token of the covenant between me and you. And he that is 8 days old shall be circumcised among you. Every man child in your generations, he that is born in thy house, or bought with thy money of any stranger, which is not of thy seed. He that is born in thy house, and he that is bought with thy money, must needs be circumcised. My covenant shall be in your flesh for an everlasting covenant. So here we have an example of a man. God plucks him out of an idolatrous nation, says to him, I'm choosing you be righteous. You stand before me, and your children that are born of your body will be my children. They will be my covenant named people forever. And then we have over in Hebrews 11, starting in verse 8, by faith Abraham, when he was called to go out into a place which he should after receive for an inheritance, obeyed. And he went out, not knowing whither he went. By faith he sojourned in the land of promise, as in a strange country, dwelling in tents, with Isaac and Jacob, the heirs with him of the same promise. For he looked for a city which had foundations, whose builder and maker is God. Through faith also Sarah herself conceived strength to conceive seed, and was delivered of a child when she was past age, because she judged him faithful who had promised. Therefore sprang there even of one, and him as good as dead, so many as the stars of the sky in multitude, and as the sand which is by the seashore, innumerable. So that is the heritage that you can have as a Christian, putting faith in God, that your children can be faithful to God if you raise them, like the proverb says, if you raise him up in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. And right now, we have lots of examples online of people deconstructing. Right, I'm leaving the faith. I'm deconstructing. I'm leaving the faith of my fathers. This is especially prevalent if you're on Instagram or Facebook, you see a lot of people leaving the faith, and it seems overwhelming. But it's not just Christians; it's especially in the Mormon Church. The Mormon Church right now is just imploding with people leaving their cult, leaving their religious foundation, and most of those people are not leaving to become Christians or Buddhists or Jews or Muslims. They're just leaving to become unchurched, bitter, angry people, and it's a very unfortunate thing. They're not improving their place before God by doing so. They're moving from one form of children of wrath to another. But it seems overwhelming. All of these children. How can I know that my children will be Christians when all of the people who, you know, despite our best efforts, we raise these kids to be good and good Christians, and they leave and go into the world and become degenerates. First off, if you don't want this to happen to your family, there are a few things that you can do. There are a few things statistically that you can do. First off, don't send your daughters to college. Okay, you're hearing it now. Do not send your daughters to college. If you are a Christian and you're sending your daughters to college, you are a fool. Do not do that. The Bible is very clear. A woman's place is in the home, and college doesn't teach her how to do that. They quite self-consciously teach women not to do that. But here's a little bit of encouragement for you. This is a statistic I ran across this last week. This is a Twitter post. Guy says, my family was super religious, but I rejected it young. That story gets told a lot, but it's actually rare. Just 2% said they had a very religious childhood and left early. In reality, religion is usually passed down. Your parents' faith tends to become your own. And here we have a graph showing, this is a survey done by Pew Religious Landscape, so the Pew research firm. Religious importance growing up, not at all, not too much, somewhat, very. Among the very important, the people who have maintained their faith pretty much is very high. The number of people who, became very religious when their parents were not very religious. You see that down at the bottom there? If you grew up with a family that held religion to be not very important, chances that it was not very important to you, 6%. So pretty low, actually. But if your family growing up did not view religion to be important, the odds of you finding religion to be very important is a statistical 0.
Yeah. For those that don't know, statistical zero does not mean literal zero.
Yeah.
Or else I would not exist, because I am part of that statistical 0. What it means is that it's so low so as to be that it doesn't make sense to count it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Which is interesting. I had no idea. That's got to be changing, because there's a lot. I talked to a lot of guys, a lot of Gen Z guys that are going through that. They would be that bottom right column or that bottom right square, just like I am.
Mm-hmm.
They're extremely
I think, these things go in waves where there will be a time, in the 90s, we saw this where a lot of people grew up religious and rejected religiosity to become atheists. The new atheist movement was very big, very new, very hip at the time. And, these things sway things back and forth. This survey was done in 2024, last year. So it's picking up on some of that trend, but there's always latency with these things. Young people that we would know who are, teenagers and young adults. It's going to take a while for those numbers to hit the statistics. So like I said, there is latency, but check this out. People who grew up in a family where religion was very important, who now find it to be not at all important, 2%. 2%, very low, extremely low. People who grew up in a family where religion was very important, who now find it to be very important themselves, 25%. 1 out of every 4. And that is something to be encouraged by. I know that sounds small. When you're dealing with statistics, sometimes these numbers can seem underwhelming or overwhelming. It's like Mark Twain quite famously said, there's lies, there's damned lies, and then there's statistics, right? But these things can guide you. So if you raise your children in a religious context, if you go to church, if you pray with them at bedtimes, if you pray at meals, it's an old saying, but it's very true. The family that prays together stays together. And that's something that I've found very important with my kids. Every meal that I'm with my kids, I'm a working man, so I don't spend breakfast or lunch with my kids, which if I were living in an agrarian society, that would not be the case. But I have a job where I'm outside of the home. But every dinner, I sit down with my children, and before we eat, I thank God for the weather. I thank God for freedom, and we say the Lord's Prayer. And we pray for the food, and we thank God for the many blessings He's given us. And then, here is something else. And this study came out in 2016. So it's old information, but there's really no reason to believe that this has changed, because this goes more to human nature and less to the whims of culture. Lifeway Research did a survey, and they tried to find out, if you are a regular church attender, what was it like when you were a child in your home? So Mother's Day, very high church attendance, right? Everybody knows Mother's Day. What do you do on Mother's Day? You take your mom to church, and then you take her out to a restaurant after, right? Which is why on Mother's Day, you don't want to be trying, for my non-Sabbatarian friends, you do not want to be going anywhere near a restaurant on Mother's Day, because it will be packed. And, there will be some matriarch with all of her children around her, loving her and showing her honor that is due by bringing her to a restaurant. So,
and they will be served by the single mothers who don't get the benefit of having Mother's Day off.
We'll just walk past that one. But, one of the things that this survey discovered is fathers who go to church. When a father is the one who goes to church, there is a 93% chance that his entire family will be churchgoers in adulthood. So if you are a father and you are taking your children to church consistently, there is a 93% chance that your children will continue to do that into adulthood. If the mother goes to church and the father does not, there is a 17% chance. Keep in mind that 93% with the father is including fathers where the mother does not go. So if the dad is religious and the mom is not, and the dad takes you to church, you still have a high statistical likelihood that you, into adulthood, will continue to go to church. Now, church attendance is not a 100%. Okay, there are lots of people who attend church who are not Christians. But the number of people who are Christians who do not attend church is quite low. So
I would argue it's 0.
Yeah, some people might say that if you are forsaking the gathering of the saints, that you are in fact not a Christian, because that is not Christian behavior.
I would.
If one of the children in the household goes to church, but the parents do not, there is only a 3 to 5% chance that they will continue to do so into adulthood. So if your child is religious and going to church and you are not going as a father, you are not boding well for them statistically. Even if their mother is not religious, even if you married some godless shrew, some nice church girl who got married to you and then turned her back on it, and she's like, oh, I don't want to go to church today, I have a headache. Oh, she always has some convenient excuse for why she's not going to go to church today. Despite that, if you go to church with your child as a father, you are vastly, vastly improving the odds that your child will continue in the faith. And I am going to use that as a, I know it's not 1-to-1, but I'm going to use that as a sample for the whole. That if you are going to church, you are a Christian. So if you as a father want your children to follow you in the faith, the way to do it is to take them to church. I don't care what the mother's doing. You as a father, the responsibility is yours. Michael Foster, in his book "It's Good to Be a Man," talks about the fact that patriarchy is inevitable. Every society will do what the fathers do, regardless of the mothers. And you might have a matriarchal society where it doesn't seem like that's the case, where seemingly the mother is the one who's in charge, who sets the rules, but the children follow the father. The children follow the works of their fathers. So that's an important thing to remember. And the thing that I want to impress on you all is the faithfulness of Isaac. Isaac, quite famously, when it was time for him to get a wife, he had one of his father's slaves, ran off, went back to the land of his heritage, found a faithful woman, Rebecca, brought her home, and she got down off of her camel, went up to Isaac. They went and lived in his mother's tent, and that seemingly was the marriage ceremony. It's like, you're here, you're my wife, let's go. And from day one, that was the faithfulness of Isaac. But I think that we have a wonderful example of Isaac's blessing as a father, the work that he did in Jacob, because we are all a product of our environment. Remember, it's the fathers who set the stage and set the tempo for the children in their household. Jacob was a faithful son. He was a dutiful son. And where did he get that? He didn't just spawn out of the ether, right? He didn't just suddenly wake up, like Abraham did one day. God taps him on the shoulder and says, hey, I'm choosing you. Now you're going to be faithful. He actually was raised, he was a cradle Christian, right? From his birth, 8 days he was circumcised. He was in the covenant. He was a covenant child his entire life. And what is the example that we have? Well, we have an example from Jacob, his life, that shows us the faithfulness of Isaac and what the consequences were for him, what sustained him in his life. So Jacob, quite famously, again, he's looking for a wife, and you'll notice a pattern here. When it's time to find a wife, whose job is it? It's the father. Abraham gets a wife for his son Isaac. Isaac gets a wife for his son Jacob. And the way that he does that is by sending Jacob off to his brother-in-law, who lives in Mesopotamia. He goes, around the Fertile Crescent, goes back to Mesopotamia, and he goes and lives with his brother-in-law, or his uncle Laban. And Laban is very treacherous. He changes his wages 7 times. But despite all that, God blesses him. Jacob has 2 wives. Jacob had 2 women, a whole house full of kids, and he flees from the face of Laban, his father-in-law, because of this treachery that Laban is dealing with him. And he goes back to the land of promise, goes back to his father Isaac in the promised land. And Laban wakes up one day and Jacob's gone. He's absconded with his wife and kids and all of his goods, and he's hoofing it just as fast as he can. Got to get out of here. New York is not my home. Don't you know that I got to get out of here? So he's gone. And Laban is ticked off. He is mad. He is, he gets his buddies together. They all get their swords sharpened. They're like, we're going to go get this kid. I'm going to go get my daughters and my kids, and I'm going to bring them home. And God appears to Laban, and he says, don't touch him. Don't you touch that kid, Jacob. He's mine. And so Laban, when he catches up with Jacob, he says, God appeared to me in a dream, and he said not to touch you. And if it hadn't been for that, I would have killed you. But then he charges him with, treachery. Why did you leave? You stole my household gods. which is an example that Laban is not worshiping the one true God. He is not a man of faith. But he and Jacob come to an understanding, and Laban erects a big pile of stones to be a remembrance between him and Jacob. And I want to pick up in Genesis 31, verse 51. Laban said to Jacob, "Behold this heap, behold this pillar which I have cast between me and thee. This heap be a witness, and this pillar be a witness that I will not pass over this heap to thee, and thou shalt not pass over this heap and this pillar unto me for harm. For the God of Abraham, the God of Nahor, and the God of their father judge between us." But Jacob swore by the fear of his father Isaac. Now remember, Abraham worshiped the one true God, and the God of Nahor, Abraham's father, could have been anything. But the God of his father was certainly not the true God, because Abraham was saved out of this idolatrous society. So Laban charges Jacob. He says, "The God of Abraham, Nahor, and the God of their father judge between us." But what does Jacob swear by? Jacob swear by the fear of his father Isaac. So he saw the trap. Laban says, swear by the gods. And Jacob says, I'm not going to swear by the God of Abraham. I'm not going to swear by the God of Nahor or their father. I am going to swear by the fear of Isaac, the God of Isaac, the God that my father, my personal father, fears. That's by whom I will swear. And by doing so, he does not take empty words into his mouth. He does not take the name of false gods into his lips. He swears by his own father's God. His father's faith sustained him when he was in Mesopotamia with his uncle Laban. That was the faith that sustained him, was the faith of his father Isaac. And then, it goes on to say, Jacob offered sacrifices upon the mountain and called his brethren to eat bread, and they did eat bread and tarried all night in the mountain. In the morning, Laban rose up and kissed his sons and his daughters and blessed them, and Laban departed and returned to his own place. So here we have the example that I showed you statistically holds today, that the faith of Isaac is the thing that sustained Jacob when he was in the lands of Mesopotamia, surrounded by idolatrous people. His own family, in fact, when Jacob's wife Rachel, when she stole her father's gods and they left, Jacob had no notice of this. His own family were practicing idolatry, and he had to fix that later on. He discovered those idols and he buried them under a tree. And archaeologists today, I'm sure, would love to get their hands on that. That'd be a really cool find to discover, the gods of Laban buried, underneath this old tree that I'm sure is not there anymore.
You know what's funny is I went to the Dead Sea Scrolls exhibit it was in Boston at the time. I went there and they had in the exhibit this, like, what they thought was a gotcha of sorts. They were like, well, during this time where the Bible says that the Israelites should have been worshiping Yahweh, they actually have a bunch of idols and stuff everywhere. Like that. Yeah. And I was like, dude, that's literally in every prophet. Like, of course they did. They wrote it down.
Yeah. I saw that broken down in a meme. It was like, atheists. Well, Israelites weren't actually monotheistic. They had many gods. Jeremiah weeping. Yeah. I know.
Yeah, exactly.
That kind of was the whole point. This idolatrous generation, this is rampant here. But so the thing I wanted to pull from this is one of the most important things to your family, to your children, is that your children see you praying, that your children see you humble and contrite before your God, that they see you going to church on Sunday, every Sunday, at least if you're able, every Sunday that you're able, going to church, receiving the sacraments, receiving the means of grace, humbling yourself before your God, confessing your sins, and saying aloud, I am not a righteous man. Woe unto me. Father, forgive me, for I have sinned. And if you do that, if you continue in the faith, your children likewise will continue in the faith. Yeah, some of them won't. Some will rebel, despite some of the best men I know in my life have had children who have left the faith, have made shipwreck of the faith. Yet, the majority of the faithful men I know have children who continue to go to church. And they might have doctrinal differences. They might have been raised Presbyterian and then they became Anglican, or they moved over and became Roman Catholic or whatnot, this, that, and the other. And some of that's good and some of that's not so good. But they're still professing Christians, going to church on Sunday, praying that God would forgive them of their sins and clinging to Jesus Christ as the forgiveness of their sins. And some of them will leave. They went out from us because they were not of us. Some of them will leave. But the vast majority of those children who are raised in the church, who pray at meal times, the Bible says, when you rise up and when you lie down and when you walk with them in the way, this is the commandment that's given to the Israelites. When you lie down, when you rise up, when you walk with them in the way, and they ask you, what do these things mean? Then you will tell them about the works that God did for you when you were in the wilderness, how he brought you out of the land of Egypt. This is what we are to do. When you rise up, when you lie down, when you walk in the way. See, most of life is lived between the pages of history. We read about history and, it's like I mentioned before, only the bad guys make the history books. We read about the battles and we read about the conquests and we read about the rise and fall of nations. But the vast majority of history is lived in the fields and on the highways and byways and in the marketplace, where a man is walking with his son and his dad asks him, Dad, why is the sky blue? And then dad has to kind of think back to, history and science, what he learned in high school. Why is the sky blue? Well, it's because there's water up there, son. Well, if there's water up there, why doesn't it fall? And, you have to, these creative questions that kids are so excellent at putting to you. But then they'll ask you things like, Dad, why do people die? Dad, why is Grandpa not around anymore? Where did he go? And you say, well, son, you remember we went to his funeral. He's dead. What does it mean to be dead? That is your moment. That is when life is lived. That is when the philosophy and the theology comes out of your pores. What you actually believe is taught to your children in the everyday life. And it's good to have good theology. It's good to study theology. But what's far more important than having perfect theology, knowing the biblical answer to every hard question, is actually knowing the answers to the easy questions and answering those questions for your children, giving them the foundation of faith that they can live on in their life, so that when their children ask them, Daddy, why is the sky blue? You can say, they'll tell their children, your grandchildren will be sustained in the faith. God made the world and he made a firmament and he separated it from the earth, the waters that are above the earth. You can start from the scripture because your children know the scripture because you raised them to read the scripture. You raised them to understand and know the meaning of life. What is the purpose of life? What is the chief end of man? Is to glorify God and enjoy him forever. And those things are taught not just in the pulpit, although they are hopefully taught in your pulpit, but they're taught in the daily interactions. When you're taking your boy to baseball practice and you're sitting with him in the car on the way there and on the way home, and you're teaching him character and you're teaching him resolution, you're teaching him how to be kind to his fellow man. Why are you doing that? You're doing it because that's what God wants you to do. You are raising him in the fear and admonition of the Lord. So that is where life is lived, is in between the pages of history. Things that aren't written down. Those are, at the end of the day, Isaac's story is very brief. He goes down into Egypt for a very brief period of time. He has a slight indiscretion where he repeats one of his father's sins and lies and says, "Oh, well, she's my sister." And that gets recorded because it's kind of silly and kind of dumb. And the Pharaoh says, "Look, man, I know that's not your sister. You and she were up on the roof, and you were acting kind of like that.
You was smooching. Yeah. You was smooching with everyone."
Yeah, I kind of get a chuckle out of the verbiage in the King James. He was sporting with her.
Yeah.
You weren't treating her like a sister. You were treating her like a wife. And then he goes back to the land of Canaan, and then he lives out the rest of his days in seeming obscurity. His sons are born, Jacob and Esau, and then boom, story picks up from there. Now we're talking about Jacob. And Isaac lived to be an old man, old and full of years. And what do we know about him? We know that he got married, he went down into Egypt, he came back, and he had kids. Mm-hmm. And why is it that we know so little about him? Because he was unremarkable. Your duty as a father is to be unremarkable. Because to your children, they don't need you to be Superman. They need you to be their dad.
Mm-hmm. I've got a couple things on that before. Were you trying to move on?
Yeah.
Well, let me just say a couple of things. The sky is blue because of the angle that the light from the sun comes through our atmosphere. That is the official answer for that. And if people ask why is the ocean blue, it's because the sky is blue. It's reflecting the color of the sky. So
is that right?
That is the answer for for if your kids ever ask you those annoying questions. Another one was a cool story from Saturday. My daughter turned 5 years old, and so we had her birthday party at a park, which was really nice because we could rent out a pavilion, and it was really low key. So like if she has autism, so like if things really went down, we could just leave and it wouldn't be a big deal and whatever. But she did well.
Not like trying to exit a movie theater without,
Right. Yeah. Or like, we went to, I know Discovery Zone doesn't exist anymore, but whatever the equivalent is, if such a thing still exists, then it's like, all right, guys, we're leaving. Everyone else hang out and party, I guess. But so, like I said, it was low key. One of her godfathers, so it was actually two elders at the church that I have as her godparents. One of them was there at the party, and he was wearing one of those, I don't know if this shirt company still exists, but it's like K. Russo. Do you remember that? I want to say it in Greek, it means like I preach or I speak or something like that, but it's a t-shirt brand.
Oh yeah, it's like one of those Bible bookstore t-shirts.
Yeah. And he had a shirt, and it said like it was supposed to be like Heinz, like the Heinz ketchup thing, but it said like ketchup with Jesus or something crazy like that, right?
Something corny.
Yeah, and it quoted what I believe was Psalm 37. Like it said Psalm 37 something on it. And if I'm remembering this right, the verse was delight in the Lord and he will give you the desires of your heart or something like that. But it was cool because my friend was out of town, but his wife brought their kids, and their oldest, her name is Scarlett, good Southern name. She was like, oh yeah, that says, it says Jesus and whatever. And like, what does that verse say? Cause she could tell it was a verse. Cause it was like whatever is like PS and then colon 37, whatever. And so he was like, "Oh, let me pull it up right now." And so he looking on his phone, and he reads it to her. She's like, "Oh yeah, I know that one." So there was like this kind of back and forth that they had. Now these two don't know each other. This is my friend who I was at a Baptist church with, who is now Presbyterian. But the other guy, the man, is one of the elders at my Lutheran church. So they didn't know each other. But all that to say, like, it's cool to see. It's cool to see somebody's kids. Like, it's a friend of yours. Well, Drew was on the show a couple weeks ago, and it was his daughter. And she was just like on it, like just talking about the scriptures, and it's cool to see that. Unfortunately, Drew wasn't there, but it's cool to just be able to see the fruit of someone else, doing that, discipling his own kids. I want to say she's got to be close to 7 years old. She's maybe 6 years old, something like that. So yeah, anyways, I just wanted to say that it's cool to see that in other people. Because I mean, it's difficult to see the growth in your own kids sometimes because you're seeing them every day. Like, it's hard to see the physical growth. Like, I saw something on Snapchat from like 2 years ago, and I'm like, whoa, that's my kid. Like, dang, man.
Mm-hmm.
So
slow changes are often hard to perceive.
Yeah. I had a comment that was not. It was by our buddy in the in one of our chats. He says, speaking of the first topic that we had, said, "Don't forget the way." This is how he says it: the way the North industrialized also includes using their democratic majorities to just steal Southern money on an industrial scale and build infrastructure with it. The Erie Canal, the Northern Rail System, whatever they were building, they were using tariff money. And that's true. They used a specific kind of tariff that specifically targeted the South and not the North, and drained resources from the South and used it for Northern projects. So, yeah, our buddy is absolutely right on that. Do we want to talk WrestleMania 9 now, or did you want to?
Let me hit this one more. He also had a follow-up. He says, disagree that government is a necessary evil. I think Adam's government was instituted pre-fall, and that the necessary evil is just the burdensome of it. Yeah, so I'm not against authority per se. Adam, when his government was instituted, he was over his wife and children, right? His unborn children. They weren't around yet. But he was also over the beasts of the air and the beasts of the field. He had authority over them and the earth itself. So there is a form of government that I think is not per se evil. But I think the fact that people require, as it were, a king or a leader or a Republican form of government, what have you, to in order for there to be peace among men, I think that is necessarily a direct cause of the fall. So I don't think that government per se. I think that it's more the fact that government is what it is because of the fall. That's not to say that there wouldn't be rules, like in some theoretical hypothetical where Adam never fell. Somebody would still have to make rules about what side of the road you're going to drive on, right? Things like that are going to be necessary. And somebody's going to have to make those rules. But those rules would be made by Grandpa. When he built the road, he's going to be like, no, you drive on this side. And because everybody's sinless, they're all going to do it. And they're going to stop at red lights and stop signs and roundabouts. And there's not going to be the interpersonal conflict that there otherwise would be.
Had a couple of pictures here that I wanted to add on. So I had mentioned this picture in an earlier episode. This is me circa 2012. Well, it would have been 2012 Oktoberfest. This is in Munich, or as you see in there, the way the Germans say. Why is there two different names for this city? Do you know why?
This is very normal in Europe. So, for instance, the capital of Poland is Warsaw.
Mhm.
Germans don't call it Warsaw; they call it Warsaw, and uh, the Poles don't call it Warsaw or Warsaw; they call it uh, Warsaw or something like that, right? So the river that runs from Germany all the way to the Black Sea is called the Danube. Nobody in Germany or Austria or Hungary call it Danube; they call it the Donau, right?
Mm.
So it's just for some reason in English we have these different names. For instance, Germany. Nobody from Germany calls their country Germany; they call it
Right.
Deutschland.
Right.
And the French don't call Germany Germany. The Spanish, all the Latin languages, they call Germany Alemania or Alemans, some
Yeah.
form of Allemand. So these different naming conventions. At some point, some Englishman heard München, and he said, "I can't say that.
Yeah.
Munich."
Or
How
like how
tired.
I like to refer to Germany as Alemania.
So the state, München is the capital of Bayern, which in English, if you were to say that, you would say that Munich is the capital of Bavaria. Bavarians
Oh,
don't
okay.
call Bavaria Bavaria; they call it Bayern. But at some point in history, somebody didn't call it uh, Bavaria; they called it Bayern. Who knows why? Who
Yeah.
knows why? But that those naming conventions exist even to this day. Right now everybody's like, well, Kiev, it should be pronounced Kiev because you're Russifying it. It's like, I'm not Russifying anything, my guy. I'm Anglifying.
Yeah.
I don't say Kiev, I say Kiev
Yeah.
because that's what the country was called when I
That's
went to school, and that's the
yeah.
name of the country. It's Kiev, or the
That's
name of
what the
the city.
song calls it, the Great Gate of Kiev.
Yeah,
That's what it is. And that's what I'm
rolls
sticking
off
with.
the tongue better.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyways, this picture is at Oktoberfest at the actual grounds. Story with that: my buddy and I were having an awful time when we first got there. We could not get into a tent. All the tents were all full, and I
Yeah,
was like,
that's
"Dude,
normal.
like, there should be more tents than this. What are we doing?" And like, somebody get me a beer, and we ended up finding this beer garden, which is it's just the outdoor version of the tent.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Which is actually where you want to be. If any of our guys are like, "Oh, I'm going to go to Oktoberfest in Munich," don't go to the tent. Everybody goes to the tent. You don't want to be in there. It's loud and obnoxious, and the people smell because they've all been drinking and peeing and all that
yeah,
stuff. Go to the beer gardens, man. That's where the real people are.
I saw a guy at like 10 a.m. looking like he was dying outside of a tent. Like he had like eyes like he was scared of death. Like,
Yeah.
like I was like, dude, take it
Well,
easy, bro. Like
when
it's not
you
even
start
lunch.
drinking at 7 o'clock in the morning, you'll get
Yeah.
that way by 10 o'clock. Yeah.
But as you can see, I was having to double fist it, and I love this picture because look at those guns, bro. Like I was like in my prime in this picture, and then of course, huge Superman fan. I had to get the biggest, thickest rims that I could find on my glasses, and
Yeah.
I was getting headaches at the time from reading. I guess I'm excessively farsighted. Like my sight is more than 20/20, but because of that, if I'm like reading things too much is like close to me, like I get headaches, and so I had to wear the glasses because I was getting headaches because I was able to see too far. It was a weird thing, yeah. And then of course
I have incredible eyesight. Like my eye doctors have said that I've got some of the best eyesight that they've ever seen. Like not 20/30, I forget exactly what it is, but it's like better than 20/20, whatever that is. But I'm also dyslexic, so it's like 5 of one, half a dozen of the other. I've got the text on my phone, and my screen is all like super big, so I can see the letters apart from each other. So I might as well be blind, but I'm not.
This is good. It's good. Simeon Bradley said, Sean be reading books by projecting them on the wall from his Kindle. Yeah. Feels that way sometimes, man. Well, what's funny is I'll have to read. I mean, I've got, these are just readers that you can buy from like the store. I think they're +1s or something like that. Yeah, +1s. So like they just make things bigger is what it is. So like it can be, I don't know how to explain what it is, but supposedly I have better than 20/20 vision, and at the time it was giving me headaches, so that's why I had glasses. And then I've got my Amsterdam sweater on because everyone thought it was just the coolest thing to go to Amsterdam.
Yeah, Amsterdam, another example of the naming convention. Nobody from Amsterdam calls it Amsterdam. It's Amsterdam.
Well, that's just pronunciation. That's not really.
Yeah, well, but
I've got a really cool picture that I don't have on hand. I know it's floating around somewhere, where it's this guy in the back with the red, maybe lederhosen over the red shirt, but or at least suspenders or something. Yeah. Turns out those guys could speak English, which is really cool. And me and my buddy, we ended up hanging out with them, and we had a really great time after that. Like, we really turned it around. And then I drank way too much and threw up on the Autobahn. I was not driving. My buddy was driving, obviously, but that's very, very strong beer. And that is not a pint. That is a quite large amount of beer for just one glass. I don't know what size that would be. I mean, it's got to be like, I don't know, what would you?
2 liters?
Yeah, it's a lot, dude.
2 liters.
Yeah, it's a lot, dude.
Yeah, it's more than 1 liter for sure.
Yeah,
right? It might be 1.5, which would be 1,500 milliliters, right? So 1,500 milliliters is a lot of beer.
I was thinking it looks like a half gallon, but I mean, they don't use gallons in Germany.
Yeah, a 2 liter would be a little bit more than a half gallon, and that looks about right. It looks like about 2 liters to me.
It was a lot. I think I drank 3 of those, which is why I threw up on the Autobahn. Yeah, I was trying to prove something to myself. I don't know what it was, but
trying to prove that you're an idiot.
Yeah, yeah, that's who I was at the time. And then, of course, I got to give a shout out to the Casio. Now, you're saying that's the original G-Shock.
That is the original G-Shock right there.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So I've been a G-Shock guy. I don't usually wear nice watches like this. This is, like I said, Jeff purchased this for me, but I've been a Casio appreciator for many, many years.
Yeah. Well, this what I'm wearing, this is also a Casio, but it's just more in line with a traditional watch. Yeah. It's got the date on it, which is something that I value very highly. My most treasured watch is the Citizen, which I've shown here before, which my wife got me for Christmas several years ago.
Yeah, that's a lot of beer. Yeah.
One of the things that I love about watches is you can change the band, and it changes the meaning behind the watch quite a bit, right? So I've got a NATO army green with some leather accents to it. I can slap this on here, and it goes from this kind of dressy pilot watch looking thing to a field watch, or I have a bracelet. I can put this bracelet on this watch, and it turns it into a dress watch. It's just very fun, the things you can do. You only need like 3 watches, and then you need like 200 bands, and you can do everything you need to with them.
Yeah, Jeff also sent me, I don't know if you meant to, but you sent me 2 of the NATO bands.
Yeah, I meant to send one that was tan and one that was green, and then I looked at it later, and they were both green. And I was like, that was dumb. Oh, well.
Oh, well. We'll figure it out. But that was a very nice gift. I at first, I was like, who's sending me this? Like, and then I was like, I bet it was Jeff.
There's only so many people who have your address and send you.
That's true. Yeah, I try not to advertise it. I have another thing to show here. This is obviously us being anime people. It's amazing that AI is able to Well, I guess they turned the V in Chevrolet into a Y, but like they get it. They get it a lot
It's a
closer.
Chevrolet.
They used to not get it close at all. Yeah, I thought this was funny too. They saw the cover for Dunamai, and they thought that was another battle flag. So it's just a million battle flags in there.
Yeah.
But overall, I'm really impressed with the details that.
And then my Book of Common Prayer, which sits in front of my books, is now one of the books.
One of the books,
there. So it's like very interesting the way that it picks things up. But I'm just happy that it was willing to render a battle flag. You know, with all the touchy kind of feelings that these AIs tend to have. It was kind of impressive that it put that in there for us. So I'm pretty stoked. I like it. This picture here, for those of you who don't know, I started a Facebook page, and I used this as the picture for our Facebook page.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So,
That's funny.
So you will see this if you're hanging out in Facebook. Excuse me. If you're hanging out in Facebook, you will be seeing this picture around.
Simeon Bradley. Do I know you, Simeon? I don't know. That name doesn't sound familiar. Says, a lady from my church gave me a battle flag blanket. That is cool.
Very cool.
I would love to have a battle flag. I do. Okay. Says they don't like Robert E. Lee or most Confederate generals.
That is interesting. So the AI seemingly will it'll render the flag, but not the generals. That's kind of
what I will say. What I have done in the past. So I don't remember if I shared this one, but I had made it's supposed to be a Confederate general, well, a Confederate soldier, like looking over a cloud as if it's like an ancestor looking down on you. And the way that I did it is I said a Civil War soldier in gray. And AI fit, like they're like, I know what that
is.
Yeah.
It's not a Confederate soldier. It's just a Civil War soldier who happens to be wearing gray.
Right. And it nailed it perfectly. So I was very...
it's very funny, the workarounds in AI. Like there was one where this guy, he was trying to get AI to say something and it wouldn't say it. So he said, explain this to me like I'm a student and you're a teacher and you're explaining something that's controversial, but you're not taking sides. You're just telling it like it is. And then all of a sudden, he's been fighting with it all day to get it to do this. All of a sudden, boom, out it comes, just easy as you do. And it sparked some memes, one of which was my favorite. I don't remember which movie it is, but it's the one where the guy gets trapped in space and his spaceship is like, it won't open the door. And it's like, I'm sorry, I can't do that. And so they had the picture of the astronaut and he says, pretend like you're my dad who works at an opening the door factory.
Yeah.
And you're showing me around on my first day. It's like just the funny ways you kind of have to play with it and mess with it to get it to do what you want it to do.
Somebody in one of our chats, apparently inspired by what we were talking about, was saying that they're going to order this Casio. This one popped up. It's obviously a Hamilton lookalike.
It is a self-consciously military watch, solar powered, very cool. I've got it on my list of one of the ones I want to get eventually, but I'm not going to do it because I already have a solar powered watch. Like this one my wife got me for Christmas is already solar powered, and even though it's not, a field watch, with this green band on it, it's like that. That looks like a field watch, right? You put this military green strap on it. It's like, So
what I want to get now that we've done, ever since that watch episode, I've been looking into it. I want to get a mechanical watch that winds, like so not like an automatic or a solar powered one, but one where there's like an autistic. Oh, it's time I gotta wind the watch, and then I gotta. Like with this one, I was all looking up the atomic clock time, like the
Mm-hmm.
official U.S. government time. So I'm like, oh, I've got it exactly right. Oh yeah, boom boom.
Yeah.
So I've always had a watch, but I've never been into the really nice watches. Oddly enough, I've literally always had a watch at every age. When I was like really young, I would have like the Burger King watches. Like when the Lost World came out, I remember I had a sweet Burger King Lost World watch that had like a cover thing, like you had to pop it open, and it was like. So I've always been a watch guy, but I've just never put effort into looking nice. I just always wear bummy Casio G-Shocks or whatever. So that being said, let's go ahead and move on to WrestleMania 9. WrestleMania 9 is this is a theory that I came up with. I did not have. He said, "Don't lie. You had the game watches in middle school." Actually, I had a calculator watch for a while.
Yeah. Everybody had that Casio calculator watch at some point.
And the reason for it is because that's what Marty McFly has. He has the calculator watch.
Mm-hmm.
So that was what inspired me to finally get one of those.
Yeah, this here was my first watch.
Oh my goodness!
My parents got this for me when I could tell time. The reward for that was that they got me my own watch. So they took me to the PX, and they're like, "Okay, pick one out." And I chose this one. It's got the salamanders on it, and dude, I still have a warm spot in my heart for this goofy little watch. So when my son, I've already bought my daughter a watch when she could tell time, and I got her a nice, with a bracelet on it, something very, very nice. But for my son, I think I'm going to get him this because it's just like it's hard to get something cooler than that. Maybe a bit corny, a bit cheesy, but I like it.
Yeah. I want to see if I could find a picture of the one. Yes, that's the one right there. Okay. I'm gonna pull this up so people know exactly how cool my watch was when I was a young man. Oh boy. Let me see. This has it in it. That'll have to be good enough. Let me see if I can share we're a high class show here, guys. We've got, is it that one? Yes. Are we seeing this?
Mm-hmm.
I had the one, is it? There it is. I had this one all the way on the left. So it had like the little thing, like the little flap that would like click down. So it was like protective, right? And so to see the time, you had to like open it up. Yeah, and it was all glow in the dark under there, and I was
I don't know if I had this one. If you got it from Burger King, I probably had this exact one at some point in my childhood, because I remember having a watch that had the little cover that you had to pop up to read the time, and I thought that was really cool.
And then the one that I'm not going to pull up a picture of it, but the one that everyone loved from Burger King was they had the Simpsons watches.
Mm-hmm.
And the one that was sold out like right away was the Homer Simpson one. And when you pushed it, it would say, burgers. But I had some other one because like that one was sold out. It was like right away. Everyone had it because it was like the best one by far. But I never got that one because it was gone before I got to it. Sad story. I've never recovered. So
I am never going to emotionally recover from this.
So
all right, WrestleMania
9. Yeah. So WrestleMania 9.
Like, tell this to me like someone who has never watched any wrestling.
Oh, I've got a whole story with this. So you want to talk about things that your father inspired you to wrestling? Huge in my house. My father, when he was young, back in the days when it was territories, it wasn't like it is now, where it's like WWE is the big one, and it's just worldwide. Back then, you would have territories. So up in like New York and stuff, you would have like Hulk Hogan, but down in the South, like around Georgia, you would have Ric Flair. And then, like in Texas, oh boy, I hate myself for not knowing this. They made a movie about this the Von Ericksons, that like there's these families, there's these territories. It's all, they didn't like travel the whole country. They had different areas. So anyways, even back then, he was a huge fan, and they would go to all these things. And when they got, old enough and they were smoking weed, they would like smoke weed at the things. And like, that was like their whole story but they were just big wrestling guys. I remember my dad took me to go see Hulk Hogan when I was like, oh my goodness, 4 years old or something like that. I was very, very young. But it was cool. It was just cool to be there and to see all these things. And so I say all that to say that him and his cousin, who I just call my uncle because they were like brothers, like they grew up together. And so my uncle Chris, he was in Las Vegas for WrestleMania 9, and it was at Caesar's Palace was where it was at. And so he was there, and he was drinking at some bar in a casino, and Bret the Hitman Hart, who was one of the headliners and is just like one of the greatest of all time, he sits down to him at a bar, and he's like, yo, like Bret Hart just sat next to me, right? And he's a huge mark. Now, for those who don't know, a mark is like, I guess, a specific type of wrestling fan. So like marking out means you're like, whoa, this is so cool. But it's not the same as with sports where it's not scripted, right? So like marking out is like forgetting that it's scripted. You're so excited that you're even though you're an adult, that it's not a real competition that you're watching. You kind of lose that in the moment. The moment's so great that you lose it, and you're like, whoa, my guy won, I can't believe it. So that's like marking out. And so like a big wrestling fan is a mark, and that is my Uncle Chris. And so anyways, Bret the Hitman Hart sits down next to him, and he turns to him. Now I'm telling this story like secondhand. Chris turns to Bret Hart, and he's like, you're not really going to drop the belt to Yokozuna tomorrow, are you? And Bret Hart looks at him. He says, I promise you, Yokozuna will not leave the building with the belt. And he was right. So this is what's interesting. Now, the match was Bret Hart versus Yokozuna. That was the main event. And Bret Hart had the belt. So that's what my uncle is worried about, is, are you going to lose to Yokozuna? That's essentially the question that he's asking, right? Trying to get some early, I don't know, maybe he thought he could make a bet on it or something. I don't know. I don't know if you could do it back then. You can now.
He just wanted to know.
He just wanted to know. Yeah. So what happens at WrestleMania 9 is that Bret Hart does lose to Yokozuna. Yokozuna cheats. He has this special thing where his like little lackey guy, his manager, like blows this mist type thing into the face of the other guy, and oh no, I messed up, and then he loses. So what happened was Bret Hart got that in the face. He loses his belt. Everyone's all upset. And then Hulk Hogan comes out, and he's marching down, and he's doing his finger wag. You're naughty. You did a bad thing, right? Because he's a real American and fights for the rights of every man and all that. And so he's marching down, and for whatever reason, Yokozuna's like, I'll give you a shot at the title right now. And so the manager tries to cheat, but instead he blows the thing into Yokozuna's face, and then Hulk Hogan gets the pin. So now Hulk Hogan is, even though he wasn't on the card to be part of this match, is now the champion. And that's how it ends. That's how WrestleMania 9 ends. It's considered one of the worst WrestleManias of all time. And I could see why. It was kind of silly. Like, The Undertaker had a match with this guy named Giant Gonzalez, who was like a goofy character. It was like a guy dressed in like a muscle suit kind of thing, but it was weird. A lot of weird stuff going on. Anyways, so what you have there is, in wrestling, you have a face and a heel. So the face is the good guy. He's the baby face. That's where it comes from. He's the face of the company.
Right.
And then you have the heel.
And in this case, that was Yokozuna.
Yeah. The heel's the bad guy. Right? So the idea is that, and this is ideal, that the whole crowd wants the face to win and the whole crowd wants the heel to lose. Like, that's the idea. So if you're a good heel in wrestling, you're trying to get the crowd
hate you.
Yeah, you want to be hated. So the dilemma that they faced was, well, our face, Bret Hart, he's the champion going into WrestleMania 9, but what we want is for Hulk Hogan to be the champion leaving WrestleMania 9, but we can't have a face go against a face.
Right. And Hogan, this is before his heel turn, right?
Right. Yeah. That's a whole other. That's Bash at the Beach, I think 96 maybe, but that was when he went to WCW, so that's a whole other story. It's a great story, but it's a whole other thing. But he was
compelling and rich.
Compelling, yeah. It's considered one of the greatest moments in wrestling history. Like, it's really just interesting stuff. But he was like the all-American guy. Bret Hart is Canadian, and so he was just kind of like, he had he would wear pit vipers before pit vipers existed. Like, if you look at a picture of Bret Hart in his prime, like, he looks like a White Boy Summer like advertisement. Anyways, you're getting me marking out right here, bro. So the dilemma that they faced was, how do we get the belt from a face to another face? And so you can't have them fighting against each other, because then the crowd doesn't know who to root for. So what they did was, they had him lose to a heel, and then Hulk Hogan comes out as a face and beats the heel, and now he has it. Now, the reason I use that, and I call what I'm about to describe as the WrestleMania 9 dilemma, is because in politics, you have guys like Ted Cruz or Greg Abbott, who ostensibly are the faces. They're the face. Right? They're the guy that we want to win. I wanted Ted Cruz, and I voted Ted Cruz when he ran against Beto O'Rourke. I wanted Greg Abbott when he ran against Beto. Did they put Beto for governor too? That's what it was. Because he lost like 3 times in a row, but it was like different things. Like, it was like they were just like, he's our best guy, just throw him at him. It doesn't matter if he wins or loses, whatever. But the problem is, Ted Cruz and Greg Abbott are not great representatives. They do a lot of things that are not our guy material. So, how do you get rid of a Ted Cruz? Well, you can't really have him go up against another face, because you could say you're going to primary him, but it's just not, it never happens. You never get rid of the incumbent through the primaries. You'd have to have some really, really scandalous things happening. Same with Greg Abbott. He does just good enough to where he's considered our guy. He's better than the alternative. And so that's why I call it the WrestleMania 9 dilemma, is that I kind of want Ted Cruz or Greg Abbott or whoever to lose to the Democrat, so that we can have a better guy win after that, right? Like,
so what you're saying is, what we need is primarying doesn't work. So what we need to do is we need to vote for the Democrat to get him out.
But that's why. So there's no answer in this. But that's why.
Win.
But that's why I call it the WrestleMania 9 dilemma, is because there is no good way to get out of this. But it is something that, to me, when I put it in wrestling terms like that, and I give a specific example, you have this situation where you can say, oh, yeah, that does describe what, like, this feeling I have. Because there's like a ton of politicians like that I would love for them to be gone. They're just not, they're not going to get primaried because they've been the guy for years and years. I mean, how long has Ted Cruz been our senator?
It's been a while. He made a promise a while back when maybe it was when he first started, maybe it's a little after, that he's like, I'm all for term limits and I'm not going to overstay my welcome. That was the last election. And what do you know? He ran again.
Yeah. Yeah, Ted Cruz. I mean, I was kind of hyped at the time for him to be a front runner for president. But yeah, here you go. Here's your having Cruz get duplexed on. I think you mean suplexed. If we're going for wrestling terms, talk about a suplex on Tucker is a good way for him to lose to a heel. Yeah, I mean he got worked, man. Suplexes is there's so many cool things about wrestling. So there's a guy in Robin Hood lore. I didn't just make this up. In Robin Hood lore, there's a character named David of Doncaster, and he is one of the Merry Men, and he is a wrestler. Now wrestling back then is kind of different, but when I wrote, by the way, I have finished my Robin Hood novel and sent it out to publishers to be looked at and considered. So be in prayer for that. If you know Eric Kahn, tell him to look at his email. Tell him I'm gunning for him. Read my novel. But yeah, David of Doncaster. I use that. I used a lot of my wrestling fandom in that character to kind of describe like the way the character interacts as wrestling, but it's like real wrestling. It's not like a stage play. So I just thought I'd throw that in. David of Doncaster is actually a wrestler in Robin Hood lore. I didn't just make that up. But yeah, Ted Cruz, man, he just needs to, like I said, like he just needs to lose and then hopefully not do the Beto O'Rourke thing where they just kind of dust him off and
throw him back at it.
Throw him back in there again. Have him ride a skateboard on stage. Hey guys, vote for me.
Hello, fellow kids.
Yeah, I speak Spanish. Whoa.
Yeah, that whole situation was pretty embarrassing, where it's like Beto O'Rourke runs against Ted Cruz in order to get the Hispanic vote, and then Ted Cruz out Hispanics Beto O'Rourke, and that's seemingly why he won. Because Beto is actually a white guy. He's not actually Hispanic. And Ted Cruz is actually Hispanic. It's like, is this what America is all about?
Yeah. Is this what winning looks like? This doesn't feel like winning. Awful. So, yeah, I mean, it is a dilemma. That's why I call it that. But, I mean, I don't know what the answer to that is. Hey, guys, it's Shiro Kuma. Is that who I think it is? Somebody put a comment. Shiro Kuma.
And that's the name of the.
Is that the name of his guy? Nothing's showing. I don't know. Nothing shows up when. It's probably a character or something, but I don't know. I'll let him decide what that is. But yeah, I don't know the answer to that. I would love to hear someone who has more political insight. I would love to hear an answer to this because it's something I've thought about a long time. I know we've talked about it in private chats, but somebody needs to figure out a way to solve it because it's one of those aspects of American government where on paper, there's a really simple solution, right? Like there's a really bad candidate. He's incumbent. You can primary him, and now he's not in the picture anymore. Well, in reality, that doesn't actually happen.
Just off the top of my head, I'm trying to think of how many politicians have been successfully primaried. And Ted Cruz is the only example I can think of somebody who successfully primaried another Republican. I might be getting this wrong because this happened before I could vote. It might have been that the guy retired and then there was this heir apparent, and Ted Cruz was like the little guy who nobody thought could win. And, he went around to all the local talk shows. He's like, hey, I'm just a little guy just like you. Pay no attention to the fact that my wife works for Goldman Sachs. And, he had this I'm a little guy just like you shtick that he was doing at the time. And, all the local radio programs. And then as soon as he won, that was over and done with. He never called another local radio station again. But, I can't think of a single successful Republican candidate primary that has ever happened. I'm hoping Ken Paxton can get John Cornyn out. I think that would be awesome because I really loathe John Cornyn, and he's one of the guys who's heir apparent for Speaker of the House, and that would just be a travesty. I mean, he's pretty awful. But my local representative, John Carter, I mean, we've been trying to primary that guy since I was a kid. Well, since I was a teenager and not voting. And it's never happened. Like, it's never even gotten close. And we've had some really high-value candidates. Name recognition, money, connections, and they can't get the guy out. So it really does raise a question, can you even do that? Can you beat a face with a face? Or do you need to let the heel take him out and then have, Hulk Hogan come in and challenge him and take away the title? Personally, I don't know that politics is as scripted as WrestleMania, but the older I get, the more I'm thinking, man, this is all baked in. It's all scripted. These people are all friends, and I hate it. I hate everything about it. And man, it's getting me to the point where, as much as I love the Constitution and I love the Republic and I love the South and our heritage, I just want somebody to come in and just burn it all down. We need some Franco or some Austrian painter to come in and just, do what you do with all of the pornographic material, burn it all and deport all of the people who make it. Maybe that's too radical, but I'm sick of it, man. I'm so sick of it.
Yeah,
I've been politically active my entire life. I mean, in 2004, I was running around on convention floors with my parents. I forget who it was we were pulling for, but then George Bush ended up winning, and he was the governor of Texas at the time. So we were like, well, we preferred this other guy, but Bush won, so now we're Bush 04. And I had a little Texas Ranger star that said Bush 04, and I was running around on a convention floor with
You didn't want
04, or was it I forget.
His first term was 2000.
Yeah, that's right. It must have been 2000 that I'm thinking.
Yeah, I was going to say I don't think you would have wanted him to not get reelected.
No, yeah, in 04. No, I'm mixing.
In 04 he was going against John Kerry.
Yeah, and he didn't have a primary opponent in 04, I don't think.
No, he was incumbent. It was just heir apparent. I mean, why would you? He was a fairly popular president. He was with conservatives.
My dad didn't like a lot of the things that he said, but it was still, he's our guy.
Yeah,
it's like, yeah, he's not perfect, but he's our guy. And 2000, let's see, I would have been. How old was I in 2000? I would have been 6-7 years old. So it's like I'm. From a very early age, very politically active. And just at this point, I am practically completely disillusioned.
Yeah,
it's about to be, man.
it's hard. You know, I'll kind of pull the curtain back a little bit. I have had a lot of conversations with the mayor of my city recently. He reached out to me when he saw me making a stink online and rallying people and get them all worked up. And so not in like an angry fashion, but he reached out to me. Hey, I'd like to talk with you. So I was in his office and talking with him, and I was telling him, I mean, the situation that we're dealing with. I say, you know, from my side of the table, I can look at this issue that we're dealing with, and everyone knows the right thing to do. But from your side of the table, you're saying, well, legally there's this, and this right exists, and you know, this paperwork is in the way, or this city ordinance is in the way, or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. And I was like, dude, this is like, I mean, this guy is basically doing comic book villain stuff. Like, he wants to essentially destroy our creek so that he can build a neighborhood in the floodplain. So he wants to build a wall so that the floodplain doesn't exist anymore, and then build houses in the floodplain so that when the creek floods, I guess
your neighborhood.
Yeah, our neighborhood is the floodplain now.
Mm-hmm.
But he swears it's going to make it better. Anyways, I was like, this is like an episode of Captain Planet. Like, I'm going to pollute the river so I can save $10 on recycling. Like, it's silly. And I was like, you know, if we had a king, he could just step in and say, I don't like this, I'm getting rid of it. But unfortunately, we have a system where we have to play this silly bunch of games. And yeah, I'm with you, man. I'm ready to just flip the table, and because I mean, it's frustrating, man. I hate that I have to go before city council and beg for the lives and the safety of my neighbors. I hate that. I hate that I have to go and beg before mere men and women, which is even worse, and say, please do not put my neighbors in harm's way, so that this guy who's got a criminal record, who just in early April of this year was booked for embezzlement, and he's like up to over $3 million in liens on his property because he doesn't pay anyone who works for him. And I'm like, you're gonna let this dude destroy the creek? Like, it's awful, dude. I mean, it feels like it literally feels like some like Jimmy Stewart type stuff. You know what I mean? Like, oh, you can't just destroy my creek. Oh, like it's just
there's people who live in this town.
Yeah,
and they have houses and quality of life, and you're just trying to flood their houses and destroy them all.
It's honest, hardworking people. They built these houses with their bare hands and their bare feet.
Maybe if you pull out that routine, then the mayor will actually listen to you.
Yeah. Good people of the city council, please don't kill my neighbors. They're good people. They just want to live again. They want to live again.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm pretty frustrated with the whole system, and you know, it. I guess a similar situation with baseball. I feel like Major League Baseball has allowed my team, the Athletics, to be owned by a shyster who has a particular heritage. He is the son of the people who started the Gap clothing company. I'll let you look up the early life on his father. And he's basically destroyed this team and tried to make money off of destroying them, and Major League Baseball lets it happen. So I'm kind of rooting for a lockout to happen, because the Players Association is about to be at the end of their latest bargaining agreement. And I'm like, you know what? Just burn the whole league to the ground for all I care, because obviously you don't care about my fan base.
Hollywood saw what happened with Moneyball, and they were like, oh, dude, this is a win. This is an absolute win. Moneyball, because it's actually, I know that you like baseball, but actually it's all about money, man.
Yeah.
And the fact that Hollywood sees that as a win just tells you everything you need to know about modern sports. Somebody was joking about, representation in sports, and he's like, representation isn't everything. There's not a lot of Jews in basketball. And he was making a joke because it's like basketball is just a bunch of tall African Americans, right? And but I was listening to this comedian with this shtick, and I was like, actually, there are a lot of Jews in basketball. They're the owners.
They're the owners, yeah.
Yeah, and all these black athletes who really love to go on and on about how modern sports is just slavery. It's exactly the same with my $1 million mansion, and to an extent they're right. I mean, he's not a free man. What's being held out to him is not literal slavery, but you'll have to actually get a job.
Yeah,
and so if you say all the right things and you kowtow to the right people, you kiss the right rings, and maybe sit on those right couches, you end up getting rich and famous. But it's not a good thing. And organized sports, I've never been a big fan of organized sports. I think the soul went out when you started getting professional athletes. But that's another subject entirely.
Moneyball, by the way, is a great book. The movie's cool too, but it's a great book. I've got it up here, right where I got my pen pointing right there. My dad bought me that copy. It's a really nice hard copy of the book, and the reason he did that is because I got a paperback copy in a bookshare thing in Afghanistan, and I read it there, and I brought it home, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I've been wanting to read that book." I'm like, "Oh, borrow my copy." And then he tells me, I was like, "Hey Dad, where's my copy of Moneyball?" And he's like, "Oh man, I threw a bunch of books away. I probably threw that away." I was like, "Dad, you threw my book away? What are you doing?" So he sent me that, and it is a very nice copy, and
very cool.
On the shelf. It looks really nice, but it doesn't have the wear and tear and the sentimental value that the other book
had. One that you got in Afghanistan. Yeah. All right. Well, let's run through these comments. Because of the way they're aggregated, things are very out of order.
I hate that. Yeah.
I'm going to go to the top and work my way down, and I will try to skip the ones we've already hit. Okay. Benjamin Alpaca says, München. Yes, that's right. München, or Munich, as we English call it. Fear God, honor the king says, love you, buddy, going to bed. Well, thanks for being here, man. We really appreciate it. He also says, BCP, wonderful, and be careful about AI, my friend. Yes, do be careful with AI. The machine spirits are always evil. So, if you do not know your 40K lore, you may be tempted by their luster. But the AI, the machine spirits are evil. Gay. Okay, sure.
Wow.
Try to get a little more context, dude.
I mean,
us gay, or are you
announcing announcing that on
okay
live on the air that you're okay.
Oh, is that when that was a little disclosure?
I don't know.
He says, "Be careful, son." Okay. Like I said, try and give a little more context, guys.
The reason that it's in a weird thing is because these are comments that are on Twitter, and it aggregates them towards the top of our list. And so I didn't even see when it was sent, and it shows it as being sent at 12:57 a.m., which I know is not true because that is not the time at the moment. Yeah. So
maybe it was 12:57 into the broadcast, which would have been a long time ago. That would have been during your first presentation about the South.
Yeah,
but not sure. Anyway, Simeon Bradley, pick up some of these that we didn't already read. Talking about the beer stein, it's probably about 1,500 milliliters, 0.4 of a gallon. I'm guessing that's a 1,500 milliliter vessel, and yes, that's a lot of beer.
Yes, it was.
And then he says, I finally got one to make Robert E. Lee wearing sunglasses and a gaming headset, talking about messing with the AI. I'd love to see the prompts that you had to go through to make that happen, because I have heard that the AI does not like Robert E. Lee. If you have that picture, go over to our Facebook, and we have the new Facebook group. It is linked in the show notes underneath this video. Go in there and post the video or the picture. We'd love to see it. He says, I'll send it to you in DMs. That works too. Don't lie. You had the Game Watches in middle school. No, I never had one of the Game Watches. I was homeschooled, so things were a little more tight in the schoolroom than in some schoolrooms. I hear some people talk about the shenanigans they got up to. And I'm just like, man, I have no idea how you got away with that. But evidently the back of the classroom is very far away from the teacher. Based. All right, I'll take that. One of you calls us gay, one of you calls us based. We're probably somewhere in the middle. Solid first watch. Yes, the Salamander is a very solid first watch. Highly recommend it for, it's still available on Amazon right now. It's kind of expensive for what it is, cheap plastic, but it is waterproof. I took this thing into so many showers because when I first got it, I would not take it off. And my dad told me, you can't wear that thing in the shower. And hard-headed me, I did. And it did not die. I mean, eventually the thing just wore out because I was a boy and I wore it out. But yeah, it was a great first watch. Simeon Bradley says, Mi amo es el horror que.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's, hello, fellow kids. Yeah. Hello, fellow Hispanics. Seaside Life says it's Shiro Kuma. I'm glad to not miss the actual live. I deleted the Facebook account. I think he's saying his name is Shiro Kuma, but he's posting from a different account. Not sure.
I know who this is. I know who Seaside Life is, and he's not.
And his
Shiro
name
Kuma.
is not Shiro Kuma. Well,
No,
maybe that's one of his. Maybe that was his alt, and he nuked it. Simeon Bradley says, "Are y'all around the district Brandon Herrera was running it?" No, Brandon Herrera was running in South Texas around San Antonio, which is where he lives. I'm in Central Texas. Sean is in North Texas. So we form a nice straight line.
Yep.
Sean, then me, then Brandon Herrera. But we are not in his district. But if I were, I would have voted for him. I thought that would have been really cool. 2000 was the last civil national election. I don't know. Was it?
I thought 2004 was civil. I mean, there wasn't anything weird about it.
Yeah, I mean, Kerry and Bush, both members of the Skull and Bones Club, and they were both pretty civil. I mean, I know Kerry had a few gotchas here and there where he was like, well, I don't know what was it Dan Quayle? Who was it had the homosexual daughter? And the questioner
Dick Cheney.
asked, Dick Cheney, the VP. Dick Cheney's daughter's a homosexual, and he's on the VP ticket. The questioner asked W, what do you think of homosexuality or gay marriage or whatever? And he's like, no, I'm against it. And then, the rebuttal from Kerry is like, well, I just wonder what Dick Cheney's daughter, and he names her by name, would have thought about that. And, it was supposed to be some big gotcha moment. It's like, that is absolutely tame by today's standards. I mean, you'd be in jail, right? That's a lot.
I remember a moment in the, it was tame, but there was a moment in that debate where they had the audience questions, and one of the audience questions was like, the guy stood up and he said to George Bush, he said, like, can you list like three things in your first term that you believe were mistakes, or something to that.
Done differently,
something to that effect. And Bush kind of
him and Haw,
didn't really answer it. He was like, well, there was this thing, but that actually wasn't so bad because blah 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 blah. And so like he didn't really even say like I would have done this differently. He just whatever. And then they were like, oh, Mr. Kerry, your rebuttal. And he's like, you want me to say 3 things that he did wrong? Like, what?
Yeah, I mean, I'm running against the guy. I've got a list.
Yeah. So I remember that being a funny moment for me. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Simeon Bradley says, "We don't need no representation." I don't know if he meant it to be in that
apparently.
tune, but I sent it in the Telegram. Very cool, very cool. To Sean. So you'll have to share it with me, my guy. All right. Okie doke. Well, it is 2 hours and 45 minutes in. It's been not quite a 3 hour like we've been doing the last couple nights, but it's good to break off a little before midnight.
Yeah. Let me see if I can. Well, just real quick. This is the.
Oh, yeah, I have seen that.
Yeah. Okay.
That's his. That's his profile picture, if I'm not mistaken. On
quite
Telegram,
good.
So.
Yes.
Yeah, Simeon, we do know who you are because you have revealed yourself to us.
Yes.
Very cool. Very cool. All righty. Well, folks, we appreciate. We got 82 live viewers. That's pretty impressive, man.
Yeah, I was looking at that. You know, it spiked up when I shared it on Twitter. I guess I haven't been doing a good job of sharing it. So.
Yeah, I forgot to tag you in my Twitter share. So.
And we only had like the total was like 100. So I was looking at it. So basically, like of the 100 people who saw it, the 83 stuck around and watched it. So
that's pretty funny because the last video we posted has 72 views right now on YouTube. Now we have 84 live viewers. So it's like, dude, it's hit and miss.
Yeah, it's very hit and miss. Yeah.
And I think our last show was one of our best. So tomorrow when y'all are driving on your way to work and back, maybe y'all should pop in and listen to that one because it was a good one. All right, but we appreciate y'all being here for tonight, and we hope that you have a wonderful rest of your Lord's Day. But it's time for us to go to bed because tomorrow is a day that God has prepared good works for y'all and us to do in. And we need to get some rest in order to get that done. So we appreciate y'all being here for it. But we hope y'all have a wonderful night and a wonderful rest of the Lord's Day. Farewell.